Chapter 5180. This bastard must be warning us not to mess up his confession to Fairy Hongxia. Yun Gui Chong looked coldly at Yi Shixiang and said, I want to see how he's going to suffer. He. Yu Tong chuckled, it's already come to this point. Even if he hits a nail on the head, he won't be able to escape from us brothers. Oh, right, junior brother Yun, Yu Xiong went to your place, so we'll have to rely on you to activate the Four Spirits blood curse. Be careful when you activate it, don't be too greedy. Yun Gui Chong no longer had any doubts and hurriedly replied, Senior brother Yu, don't worry. It's still the same as what we discussed earlier. Junior brother will take 30% and senior brother will take 70%. Sigh. Yu Tong sighed, fortune makes fools of people. Junior brother has the initiative, so the person activating the blood curse will take at least 40% of the bloodline power. Even if junior brother doesn't agree, the blood curse won't agree. Yun Gui Chong was overjoyed, but he still spoke with fear and suggested, how about this, senior brother Yu, why don't junior brother exchange with you? Yu Tong frowned and scolded through voice transmission, junior brother Yun, you're treating me like an outsider. Yi Shixiang causing trouble is your fortuitous opportunity. If you try your best to make up for it, not only will you lose your fortuitous opportunity, but I will also lose my fortuitous opportunity. Don't say anything more. Wait for me to give you the signal, then activate the Four Spirits blood curse. All right. Yun Gui Chong knew that he would be unreasonable if he continued to decline, so he agreed through voice transmission. While Yun Gui Chong was communicating with Yu Tong, the Fortune Gate disciples in the distance had already closed in. Just as Yi Shixiang had said, although there were many Fortune Gate disciples in the Huan country, their strength was weak. Most of them only had nurturing swords and drawing swords, not even an illusory sword could be seen. For a moment, the crowd of sword cultivators calmed down. Hey! What are these sword cultivators trying to do? Naturally, Fairy Hongxia had also seen the situation of the Fortune Gate's disciples. She was also very puzzled. After all, she had foolishly followed Yi Shixiang and the others and caused such a huge commotion. She had no reason to fight with these low-level sword cultivators, right? Fairy Hongxia turned to Xiao Mao and asked, Junior brother Xiao, what is going on? Of course, Xiao Mao didn't know either. However, he felt uneasy. He reached into his daoist robe and took out a soul pouch. He said in a low voice, Senior sister, I'm not sure either. However, I feel that there's something fishy about this. Nonsense. Do I need you to tell me that? I know that too. Fairy Hongxia glared at him and said, the expressions of Yi Shixiang and the Sky Patrol city guards didn't seem fake. Fairy Hongxia. All of a sudden, the Fortune Gate disciples closest to the sword formation were in an uproar. Many of them pointed at Fairy Hongxia and shouted, quickly report to the gate chief. Immediately after, a few disciples activated their bodies and flew to the south of Sky Patrol City using either sword lights or flying techniques. Fairy Hongxia was not the only one who was dumbfounded. Even Xiao Mao, who was beside her, and Huang Mengxiang, who was separated by the Yi family, were dumbfounded. Everyone knew that the enemy cultivators besieging the Sky Patrol City must have something to do with Fairy Hongxia. While Fairy Hongxia and the others were dumbfounded, on a mountain peak covered in ice to the south of Sky Patrol City, more than 10 Golden Core cultivators frowned as they looked at the sword formation set up by the Sky Patrol City's swordsmen. They looked at each other and all of them looked at a third-grade illusory sword cultivator in the middle. This third-grade illusory sword cultivator was none other than Zhong Haoran. Zhong Haoran's wrinkled face did not show any abnormality. He looked at the seemingly sparse sword formation in the distance and then turned his head to look at the Fortune Gate disciples on his left. A sense of dejection and helplessness rose from the bottom of his heart. His lofty ambitions had long fallen from the 9 layers of clouds to solid ground. Everyone. Zhong Haoran took a deep breath and looked at the Golden Core sect masters on his left and said, what do you all think? Everyone looked at each other and looked at each other. Their hearts were the same as Zhong Haoran's. The sword formation's sword intent was colder than the ice and snow around Sky Patrol City. It had long cooled the fire in their hearts and even turned it into ice. A few days ago, they were all talking at once, excitedly discussing their dreams and plans. In front of Ayush's strength, they had already begun to shatter. They saw the cruel side of reality after all. Sect Master Wang? Zhong Haoran's gaze fell on Wang Jiancheng of the Chu Hong sect and asked indifferently. That day, Sect Master Wang insisted on tearing apart the Sky Patrol City's defensive sword formation with his peak combat strength. Moreover, we have also agreed that whoever can tear apart the sword formation first will be appointed as the Alliance Master of the Fortune Immortal Alliance. Wang Jiancheng was a tall middle-stage gold core cultivator. He was dressed in a sapphire blue military uniform and looked majestic. However, the expression on his face did not match his military uniform. Awkwardness and shock were all over his face. He opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "This. I didn't expect that they would dare to set up a sword formation outside Sky Patrol City when there are not many sword cultivator disciples in Sky Patrol City. Why is it not possible?" A thin and short middle-stage golden core cultivator immediately said coldly, "That day, I've already said that sword cultivators cultivate an indomitable and unyielding sword intent. How can they hide in the Sky Patrol City and not come out? Even if they give up Sky Patrol City, they will still fight with us." Xu Zhonglin. Wang Jiancheng was unhappy and growled, "I admit that you said that, but did you insist? Did you have any opinions? All you did was touch your lips and say a few words. Are you trying to claim credit for it now? If you can get the Alliance Master of the Fortune Immortal Alliance with just a few words, we will go back now. Why don't we invite a scholar over?" "Shut up." A bell-like voice exploded in everyone's ears like thunder. Whether it was Wang Jiancheng or Xu Zhonglin, both shrunk their necks and did not dare to say anything. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. It was an old man with a head full of white hair. His thick eyebrows were vertical, and his gaze was like lightning as he looked at the two of them. He said, "Since we have already discussed to officially form the Creation Immortal Alliance, no matter who is the leader, we are already allies. Even the word allies has widened the distance between us. We are all from the Fortune Gate that worships Daoist Xiao as the sect master. We are actually brothers. In this situation, you don't want to join forces to attack the enemy, but you complain about each other. If the disciples hear this, what will they think?" Zhong Haoran was not surprised by the old man's reprimand. He had a smile on his face as he looked at the sect master of the Burning Crane Guild named Zhao Ming. Zhao Ming was a late-stage golden core cultivator and was the strongest among the group of Dao cultivator sect masters. He was also the strongest contender for the position of Fortune Immortal Alliance's chief. Sect Master Zhao. Heavenly Competition Pavilion's Sect Master Zhuo Hong, an early-stage golden core middle-aged man, said respectfully, "I don't blame you for arguing with each other. Even when I saw the sword cultivator's sword formation, I couldn't help but feel a chill in my heart. I felt that they were unrivaled." After Zhuo Hong finished speaking, a square-faced middle-aged man also said, "Fellow Daoist Zhuo is right. This Shu also feels the same. My fishing island was built relatively late, and this Shu doesn't have any special methods. Although the number of people in the sect has increased rapidly in the past few hundred years, compared to these well-trained sword cultivators, this Shu feels that." At this point, the middle-aged man didn't continue speaking. Zhao Ming glanced at the slightly elegant middle-aged man and asked indifferently, "Xu Chong, are you trying to say that the disciples of your fishing island are a motley crew compared to these sword cultivators?" Xu Chong's face turned red. He looked at the few cultivators on his left and wanted to deny it. However, he steeled his heart and simply replied, reporting to Senior Zhao, "This Shu indeed has such thought. Of course, this is only my opinion of the disciples of my fishing island. It doesn't include all of you." He. Zhao Ming smiled slightly and said, "This old man has the same thoughts as you. Not only do I feel that the disciples of my Burning Crane Union are a motley crew, but I also feel that all the disciples of the Creation Immortal Alliance are a motley crew." Of course, there were also people like Wu Cheng from the Hui Tong Pavilion who were unconvinced. However, when they saw that even Zhong Haoran didn't speak, they naturally closed their mouths and listened to Zhao Ming's explanation. "Sect Master Zhong." Zhao Ming cupped his hands at Zhong Haoran and said, "Please don't blame this Zhao for being blunt." Zhong Haoran smiled and said, "Sect Master Zhao, You don't have to be like this. This Zhong has already discussed your thoughts with Yun Shu and the others. You can just say it. Good. Zhao Ming nodded and raised his hand to point at the sword cultivators in the distance and said, Everyone, what you see is actually not thousands of sword cultivator disciples from the Sky Patrol City. It's actually the foundation of the sword cultivators of the Hung country for hundreds of thousands of years. The Sword Dao Great War back then wasn't a fierce battle between a few sword sects and a few Dao cultivator sects. In fact, it was a collision between the foundation of our Dao cultivators and the foundation of sword cultivators. How long has it been since our Fortune Gate was founded? It's only been a few hundred years. How can it be a match for the foundation of sword cultivators who have a foundation of 1,000,000 years? Back then, when the Heavenly Demon sect was first founded, their strength far surpassed the Black Heaven sect in the eyes of others. But in the end, didn't they still suffer a crushing defeat? Of course, although the Heavenly Demon sect suffered a crushing defeat, they actually won. Later on, the Heavenly Demon sect on the Dawn Rain continent was unparalleled in the limelight and directly created the third largest force today. Today, what our Fortune Gate needs to do is to learn from the sword cultivators and the Heavenly Demon sect. We need to grow through battles and experience through blood and fire. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please go to Chijian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Ben Ben, Rogue Hero, Kai Kai in the Rain, Lonely Asylum, The Bluesky One, and other cultivators for taking the lead. Yong Qiong, Hong Hua, Heaven Defying Radish, Dao Sovereign, Deep Breath, Ferlin, Shu Ji, and other cultivators for their rewards. Today, I'll add more chapters for all of you. At the same time, I'd also like to thank everyone who follows the path of spirit cultivation. Fellow cultivators' strong support and tireless reading gave me the strength to write. Chapter 5181. The more Zhao Ming spoke, the more eloquent he became. Zhong Haoran maintained a smile on his face, but he was getting more and more anxious. He looked to the left and sent a voice transmission to Zhong Zhon. Zhong Zhon, did you find anything out of place? Zhong Zhon had been standing at the back of the group, but when he heard Zhong Haoran's question, he hurriedly replied, reporting to Martial Uncle, I didn't find anything out of place. Moreover, after our discussion, I sent more people to watch the places we passed by to see if there are any ambushes. But until now, there has been no news. What about Yunshu? Zhong Haoran glanced at Fei Yunshu on the other side, still asking Zhong Zhon through voice transmission. Zhong Zhon understood Zhong Haoran's painstaking efforts and smiled. Yunshu has been in contact with me. According to his voice transmission, his disciples also didn't find anything out of place. Even the disciples he sent out on behalf of Martial Uncle didn't find anything out of place. Oi! Zhong Haoran sighed. He couldn't help but turn to look at the endless snowfield behind him and said, This old man has tested all the Fortune Gate's gate masters. The first gate master's decree was definitely not issued by any of them. Therefore, there must be someone behind us. What this person wants to do, shouldn't it be obvious by now? But even though we know there are some traps behind us, we can't see anything. Perhaps there is no such person. Zhong Zhon replied indifferently, This is merely a desire for power. Didn't you see? During the discussion, all the gate masters were excited, feeling that Martial Uncle's gate master's decree spoke their minds. Everyone wants to turn the Fortune Gate into the #1 sect on the Dawn Rain mainland. That's exactly why this old man didn't dare to tell the truth. Zhong Haoran nodded. They have been blinded by their hot-bloodedness, they definitely won't believe it. Who knows, there might be internal strife during the discussion. Rather than letting them go to the Sky Patrol City. But the problem is. There's no problem, the most likely scenario is being attacked by sword cultivators. Zhong Zhon didn't think much of it. He shrugged and replied, The worst outcome is that our Fortune Gate is being plotted against and destroyed. The current Fortune Immortal Alliance is in a state of disunity. Where is the Fortune Gate in our hearts? If that was the case, he would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Moreover, with our Fortune Gate's reputation, I'm sure many sects in the Three Kingdoms have already heard of our Fortune Gate's name. They've already sent their disciples to wait in places where we can't detect them, waiting to be fishermen. Ah! Hearing this, Zhong Haoran couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He almost cried out involuntarily and looked up at the sword formation in the distance. What happened? Zhao Ming was clearly displeased. He stopped talking and frowned as he looked at Zhong Haoran and asked, Sect Master Zhong, have you discovered anything? Everyone. Zhong Haoran took a deep breath and pointed at the sword formation in the distance as well as the snowfield that was shrouded in sword essence. He asked, I've never participated in the Great Battle of Dao Sword or even a large-scale battle. However, no matter how I look at the sword formation set up by the Sky Patrol City, I feel that it's very simple and crude. The sword essence of the sword formation is sharp, but the sword essence is like the quills of a hedgehog. It's the sharpness of the sword formation itself, but it's not really integrated. Could it be that the sword cultivators of the Sky Patrol City did not receive the news that our Fortune Gate was coming to the Sky Patrol City in advance? They only found out today and reacted hastily. Is that why they're in such a sorry state? How is that possible? Zhao Ming sneered. Sect Master Zhong has already sent the Fortune Gate summoning order to us. Although the summoning order's transmission is considered secretive, it's not a secret in the eyes of the big sects. They must have seen the contents of the summoning order and know our plans. If the Dao cultivators know, how can the Sky Patrol City not know? Even the Hung country's sword cultivators will know soon. We were in such a hurry and did not act in advance according to the previous plan because we were afraid that the Hung country's sword cultivators would find out. Sect Master Zhao. An elegant middle-stage gold-core old man spoke. This old man's face was filled with caution as he said in a low voice, I also feel that it's a little strange. Oh! Zhao Ming looked at the sect master of the swallow-seeking mountain manor named Cheng Jizi and asked curiously, Sect Master Cheng, what did you find? Everyone. Cheng Jizi did not directly answer Zhao Ming's question. Instead, he looked at the crowd and said, perhaps my cultivation level is not the highest, but my swallow-seeking mountain manor is the biggest branch in the Fortune Immortal Alliance. Because the swallow-seeking mountain manor's name is somewhat similar to the Xuanyan schools, it was often attacked by the Xuanyan school. Therefore, I have some experience in fighting. To be honest, I don't have much hope in besieging the Sky Patrol City. After all, this is the Sky Patrol City. The Hung country's sword cultivators place great importance on it. You may have other ideas, but I'm just here to take advantage of the situation and watch the show. If any sword cultivators or sword cultivators come out, I'll be the first to prepare to escape. I'm sure many of you have the same idea as me, right? I just want to use this siege to improve my reputation and broaden my knowledge. If there's any trouble, I'll run away. At this point, Cheng Jizi's voice was a little high-pitched. He raised his hand and pointed at the sword formation in the distance, as well as the Sky Patrol City that was overflowing with sword chi. He said, but look at the situation in front of you again. How is it what we thought? Not only did the sword Xiao from Sky Patrol City not send out the illusory sword Xiao who was guarding the city to shout at us, but they didn't even let us say our purpose of coming here. They immediately sent out a battle formation to meet us. This is obviously a bloody battle. Although we have many disciples in the Fortune Immortal Alliance, how can we be a match for these sword cultivators? Cheng Jizi's words immediately tore apart everyone's pretense of being strong, and everyone fell silent. These words were their true thoughts. What they said earlier about tearing apart the sword formation and fighting a bloody battle with the sword cultivators was just a claptrap. They knew their own strength better than anyone else. The Sky Patrol City was so important. In the Sword Dao War, the sword cultivators only managed to seize the Sky Patrol City in the second stage. Today, the Sky Patrol City seemed unimportant, and the sword gate guarding the Sky Patrol City seemed to be one of the three weakest in the Huan country. However, with the strength of the Fortune Immortal Alliance's disciples, it was absolutely impossible to break through the Sky Patrol City. Power and ambition were like rich spiritual wine that made these Fortune Immortal Alliance's sect masters drunk. Only the cold wind of the snowfield and the sharp swords of the sword cultivators could make them drunk. That's true. Zhu Ji of the Yuan Feng Stockade was just an early gold core realm cultivator. He muttered, I thought that when we forced them to the Sky Patrol City, The sword cultivators would come out to ask what happened. We would explain the matter and shout for half a day until Fairy Hongxia and the Yi clan came out to explain the reason. Whether they are real or not, we would return to the Huan country. Seeing that the sect masters had misunderstood his words, Zhong Haoran was angry and anxious. He hurriedly shouted, "Everyone, this old man didn't mean that." What this old man wanted to say was, why didn't the Sky Patrol City receive any news that we were going to besiege them? There must be something fishy. The more Zhong Haoran spoke, the more sweat beaded on his forehead. He could already see the shadow of a large net, covering the Million Fortune Immortal Alliance's disciples and the Sky Patrol City's sword cultivators. The size of the net was beyond his imagination. "Marshal uncle." Zhong Zhon's voice sounded a little desperate. "There's no need to say anything more. The mastermind behind the scenes has covered our eyes and ears, but that's not scary. What's scary is that they even covered the Sky Patrol City's eyes and ears. Not to mention our Fortune Immortal Alliance, even the Dawn Rain Continent's Dao Cultivation Sect is no match for such a force." "Shut up." Zhong Haoran was furious and roared, "Isn't this all?" Zhong Haoran wanted to say, "Isn't this all your idea?" However, Zhong Haoran swallowed his words. If Zhong Haoran didn't want to borrow Black Hand's hands to clean up the Fortune Gate and create a unified Fortune Immortal Alliance, how could he send millions of Fortune Gate's disciples to the sword cultivators? How could the whole situation have gone out of control? Zhong Haoran was so angry that he didn't transmit his voice. Hearing this, everyone was stunned and looked at Zhong Haoran in confusion. Only Zhong Zhon bit his lips and lowered his head. The scene after Qin Ji and Zhong Pei escaped that day appeared in front of his eyes. Wasn't it exactly the same as today? Looking at everyone's gaze, Zhong Haoran took a deep breath and opened his mouth. It seemed like he was going to tell them about the fake sect master's token, but the truth was like a boulder stuck in his throat. No matter what, he couldn't spit it out. "Kill." Right at this time, a sword cultivator in the sword formation closest to Huang Xiaolong's group could no longer hold himself back. He opened his mouth, and a sword cry shook the surroundings. Sword lights that had been accumulating power for a long time rushed towards the Fortune Gate's disciples like a waterfall. Zhong Haoran saw that he couldn't explain, so he immediately made up his mind and made a prompt decision. "Everyone, although we are not from a real sect, we are all Dao Master Xiao's disciple. Since we call ourselves Fortune Immortal Alliance's disciples, we can't belittle ourselves and smear Dao Master Xiao's name. Today, we have already arrived at the gate of Sky Patrol City, so we won't let the sword cultivators of Sky Patrol City and the spectating Dao cultivation sects laugh at us. Come on, take out our flying swords, take out our magic weapons, and fight with the sword cultivators. Use our blood to wash this cold snowfield. Use our blood to carve the 3 words Fortune Immortal Alliance on Sky Patrol City. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you to Ben Ben, Rogue Hero, Kai Kai in the Rain, Lonely Asylum, The Bluesky One, Yong Qiong, Hong Hua, Heaven Defying Radish, Dao Master, Deep Breath, Ferlin, Shu Ji, and other fellow Taoists for their rewards. At the same time, I also want to thank everyone who follows the path of spirit cultivation. Fellow Taoists' strong support and tireless reading gave me the strength to write. Chapter 5182. As soon as Zhong Haoran finished speaking, Zhong Zhon immediately flew up and slapped his palm. A magic artifact shaped like a ruler flew out from the top of his head as he shouted, "For Daoist Xiao, for the Fortune Gate, disciples, follow me to the Sky Patrol City, kill." Fei Yunshu also shouted, "With Daoist Xiao's protection, our Fortune Gate disciples will never be defeated. Kill, kill." The Fortune Gate disciples' blood boiled when they heard Fei Yunshu's words. They circulated their true qi and true essence, took out their magic artifacts, and pounced on the sword cultivator disciples in the distance. Following Zhong Zhon's order, Zhong Haoran's eyes revealed a hint of sadness. He raised his hand and took out a round plate that was several feet in size. There were many rust spots on the edge of the round plate, and the center of the round plate was covered with runes. As Zhong Haoran spat out a mouthful of sword essence, the round plate glowed with a green sword light. "Go!" Zhong Haoran growled as his right hand turned into a sword light and struck the round plate. Kung. The round plate emitted a metallic sound and soared into the sky. However, it only flew for 100 jong before it shattered. Thousands of small green swords flew out from the light and pierced towards the sky above the Sky Patrol City. Kill. The small azure sword shot out like a shooting star, covering 1,000 jong in the blink of an eye, covering the sky above the Sky Patrol City. When the Fortune Gate's disciples around the Sky Patrol City saw the small azure sword, they roared and charged out. Cheng Jizi and the others were stunned. They really did not understand why Zhong Haoran suddenly gave the signal to attack after getting angry. However, when the surrounding disciples started to attack, their misgivings, doubts, and cowardice disappeared like ashes. Cheng Jizi even shouted, "Kill! For Daoist Xiao, for our Fortune Gate! Kill, disciples! Kill!" Zhao Ming and the others' battle cries were different from the ordinary disciples. Their voices were filled with determination. Although they did not understand the meaning of Zhong Haoran's words, how could they not smell the danger from this strange battle formation? They clearly knew that this should be the last battle of their lives, and also the most magnificent battle. Regardless of victory or defeat, they would definitely not return alive, and their names would definitely be left in the annals of history. Zhong Haoran, who was on the south side of Sky Patrol City, was the first to issue the order to attack. On the north side of Sky Patrol City, Fairy Hongxia, who was in the sword formation, was stunned as she looked at the excited sword cultivator disciples. She did not know what was going on. "Senior sister," Xiao Maro hurriedly asked, "What's going on?" Fairy Hongxia shook her head and said, "How would I know?" As she spoke, Fairy Hongxia looked around and leaped into the sky. She activated her true vitality and shouted, "I, Fairy Hongxia, who are you? Why are you besieging Sky Patrol City?" A group of sword cultivator disciples shouted at the top of their lungs. A 6th-grade swordsman flew out on a sword light and shouted, "Fairy Hongxia, we are Fortune Gate's disciples. We heard that you are going to be engaged to the Yi family's young lord, so we are here to stop you. You are Daoist Xiao's partner, how can you marry someone else?" "Ah!" Fairy Hongxia was even more shocked and shouted, How is this possible? When did I get engaged to Yi Shixiang?" Fairy Hongxia. At this time, nearly 1,000 sword cultivator disciples shouted in unison, "You are Daoist Xiao's partner, how can you marry someone else? We are here to besiege Sky Patrol City to stop the engagement between the Cai family and the Yi family." Along with the loud cry of these over 1,000 sword cultivator disciples, several tens of thousands of sword cultivator disciples in an area of tens of miles around them also activated their sword energies at the same time. Then, a voice that could topple mountains and overturn seas rang out, "Fairy Hongxia, you are Zhenren Xiao's Dao companion. How can you marry into Yi clan? We Fortune Gate's disciples have risked our lives to stop you. Ha ha." Huang Mengxiang saw the awkward look on Fairy Hongxia's face and covered his mouth with his hand. He laughed heartily and said, "Sister, look at what you've done. You're going to get married soon. How can you still be worthy of brother Xiao?" Xiao Maro was also shocked. He turned to look at the Cai family's disciples and saw that they were also confused. Xiao Maro suddenly came to his senses and quickly looked at the Yi family's disciples who were not too far away from the Cai family's disciples. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the thunderous roars of the Fortune Gate disciples, a 5-colored sword light soared into the sky from the center of the sword formation. The sword light landed below Fairy Hongxia like a waterfall, and before Fairy Hongxia could do anything, the sword light intertwined with each other. As the sword light surged, tens of thousands of sword flowers bloomed like a spring tide. What was special was that the area several hundred jong around Fairy Hongxia was enveloped by the sword light, and Fairy Hongxia's pink-robed figure slowly rose up amidst the sword light. This. Fairy Hongxia frowned slightly. Just as she was about to execute a sacred art to shatter the sword light, Yi Shixiang's gentle voice resounded, "Lord Fairy, please wait a moment. This one has something to say." Embarrassment and anger flashed in Fairy Hongxia's eyes. She seemed to have understood something and looked at the tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples and thousands of sword cultivator disciples. She clenched her fists and suppressed her true essence to observe the situation. Woo 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 woo. The sword tip was like a flower, pushing Fairy Hong Xia up 1,000 feet before stopping. Then, a pleasant sword hum sounded like the sound of a flute. The sword light below Fairy Hong Xia changed again. 30% of the sword light shattered and turned into hundreds of sparrows that fell towards Yi Shixiang, who was in the middle of the sword formation. These sparrows stopped in mid-air and formed a magpie bridge. Yi Shixiang was as handsome as jade and his eyes were like stars. He wore a simple and unadorned crown on his head. He held a fiery red flying sword in his hands and stepped onto the magpie bridge. As the sparrows returned to the sword light, Yi Shixiang's figure also flew towards Fairy Hong Xia. At this moment, Yi Shixiang's body was surrounded by a 9-colored sword light. An indescribable aura was emitted from his body. Not to mention Fairy Hong Xia and Huang Mengxiang, the female cultivators, even Yu Tong, Yun Jiechong, and the other male cultivators felt ashamed of their inferiority. As for the Fortune Gate's disciples who were shouting like a tsunami, other than the ripples in the distance, there were only gasps nearby. Everyone was dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold in front of them. Yi Shixiang flew in front of Fairy Hong Xia and bowed slightly. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he looked into Fairy Hong Xia's eyes and said affectionately, "Fairy." This one fell in love with Fairy at first sight. In the past few days, I have been impressed by Fairy's temperament and words. This one feels that he has fallen in love with Fairy. Previously, this one did not dare to agree to Fairy's conditions, not because this one was making things difficult for Fairy, but because this one was afraid that once I agreed to Fairy's conditions, Fairy would leave Sky Patrol City and this one would never be able to see Fairy again. Ever since this one saw Fairy, this one did not dare to imagine what it would be like to live and cultivate without Fairy in this world. This one has been thinking about how to ask Fairy, but today, this so-called Fortune Gate's disciple gave this one a slap in the face. If I love you, I must say it out loud. Now, this one is proposing to Fairy in front of tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples and thousands of Sky Patrol City's disciples. This treasure sword in my hand is the Yi family's patriarch's keepsake. It was given to me by my Yi family's patriarch for the success of the alliance. This one will present this Yi family's keepsake to Fairy as a betrothal gift. When Fairy receives this flying sword, you will have the authority to control my Yi family. Fairy also knows that this one has a lazy personality. This one needs Fairy's help. Both the Yi family and Cai family need Fairy's help. Fairy, please accept this one's sincere request. Following Yi Shixiang's words, the flying sword in his hand emitted a fiery red sword light. This sword light was like a spark that lit up Fairy Hong Xia's jade-like face. 2 faint sparks slowly emerged from Fairy Hong Xia's pitch-black eyes. Together, together. Huang Mengxiang was extremely touched as he shouted loudly, "This guy. He really knows how to be pretentious." A rare look of jealousy appeared in Yun Jiechong's eyes. He originally thought that he was the favored child of the heavens, but in his life, he had met Xiao Hua, Fairy Hong Xia, Yu Tong, and now Yi Shixiang. Which one of them was not several times stronger than him? Xiao Mao's heart clenched. Just as he was about to move his body to stop Yi Shixiang, Fairy Hong Xia's astonished face suddenly revealed a pitilessly beautiful smile. This smile was like a flower, 100 times more vivid than the resplendent sword light. A faint voice that was neither servile nor overbearing rang out, "Young Lordji, I think you've made a mistake." However, without waiting for Fairy Hong Xia to finish speaking, Yi Shixiang chuckled and said, "Lord Fairy, I think you've made a mistake." Yi Shixiang's voice sounded very gentle in the ears of others. However, in Fairy Hong Xia's ears, it slowly elongated and was gradually filled with temptation. The fiery red color of the sword light even dyed the surrounding space. Yi Shixiang's face slowly transformed and actually turned into Xiao Hua's phoenix eyes. Fairy Hong Xia's heart couldn't help but tremble when she saw the Tao companion of her dreams appear. Her eyes were instantly filled with fire. Yi Shixiang continued, "Hong Xia, don't you want to marry me?" "Of course." Facing Xiao Hua, Fairy Hong Xia didn't hesitate and blurted out. Fortunately, without waiting for Fairy Hong Xia to finish speaking, an earth-shattering fiery light rushed out from under the sword light like a volcanic eruption. The sword light that originally enveloped Fairy Hong Xia in layers instantly disappeared like melting blood. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, Please go to Chidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Ben Ben, Rogue Hero, Kai Kai in the Rain, Lonely Asylum, the Bluesky One and other fellow Taoists for taking the lead, Yong Chong, Hong Hua, Heaven-Defying Radish, Dao Sovereign, Deep Breath, Ferlin, Shuji and other fellow Taoists for their tips. Today, I'll add more chapters for you. At the same time, I'd like to thank every fellow Daoist who follows the path of spirit cultivation. Fellow Taoists' great support and tireless reading gave me the strength to write. Chapter 5183. Keek. A burst of shrill laughter came from the flames. Following this laughter, the blood vessels of all the cultivators within a few li couldn't help but throb. Fairy Hong Xia was no exception. As her blood and qi surged, the fiery red in front of her instantly disappeared. Fairy Hong Xia's eyes turned slightly and saw Yi Shixiang's somewhat embarrassed and angry expression. Swoosh! In the soaring flames, a woman that was dozens of meters tall flew out. Wasn't she the drought demon that Xiao Hua had met back then? At this moment, the drought demon had already shed her ugliness and was in the form of a charming woman. However, this woman was so valiant. Following the flames, the woman stretched out her arms and stabbed into the sword light that Yi Shixiang had set up with his sword artifact. Catcher! The sword light was annihilated and the sword artifact whimpered. The romantic sea of flowers was completely extinguished. Yi Shixiang. Xiao Maro followed behind the woman and rushed into the sky. He landed beside Fairy Hong Xia and roared, "What are you doing?" Fairy Hong Xia hadn't completely woken up earlier. She only completely woke up when Xiao Maro flew out and the drought demon woman destroyed the illusion. Her eyes were filled with disgust as she floated to Xiao Mao's side and berated, "Yi Shixiang, you dare to scheme against I? Ha 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 ha." Seeing that his scheme was ruined, Yi Shixiang first became angry out of humiliation. However, after a moment, he laughed out loud again. Sword light flashed around his body and a second grade sword transformation realm sword aura soared into the sky, forcing Fairy Hong Xia to use her pressure to block it. As for Xiao Mao, he couldn't even breathe under this sword aura. Roar! The drought demon woman roared angrily. The space around Xiao Mao was suffused with blood-red flames. Xiao Mao then stood still and coldly looked at Yi Shixiang's wild laughter. He said, "Yi Shixiang, this Xiao arrogantly thought that you were the young lord and even introduced Fairy Hong Xia here. So all of this was a trap that you set up." After Yi Shixiang finished laughing, he looked at Xiao Mao with interest and said, "Xiao Mao Xiao Mao, don't think that I don't know that you're a subordinate of the Immortal Alliance's Falling Star Sky. You came to my Yi clan under Falling Star Sky's orders, right?" "You." Xiao Mao's expression greatly changed. He looked at Yi Shixiang in disbelief and said, "How did you know?" "Could it be?" "That's right, I knew about it long before you came," Yi Shixiang said indifferently, "and I don't mind telling you that Luo Xingtian intentionally leaked this information to me." "That's impossible." Xiao Mao's face turned ashen as he cried out involuntarily, "If that's the case, why did he send me here?" "It's simple," Yi Shixiang replied, "because Luo Xingtian was afraid that you would disturb what he wanted to do, so he ordered you to come to me. Of course, he also wants to kill you, but your bloodline is different, your identity is different, and you have a lot of value. He doesn't want to do it for now." "What does he want to do?" Xiao Mao's heart gradually calmed down as he asked Yi Shixiang. Yi Shixiang shrugged and said with a smile, "I originally didn't want to tell you, but when I thought about how you won't live to see the day when Starfall Sky controls the Thunder Control Sect, I might as well tell you. Starfall Sky wants to scheme against the Imperial Thunder Sect." Xiao Mao was stunned when he heard this. He sneered and said, "His ambition is not small. To avoid refinement cultivator, that can't be considered as ambition." Yi Shixiang replied, "If he didn't fear Kunlun Sect's Daoist master Shen Qing, he would have established a sect on Dawn Rain Continent long ago. Of course, the current Immortal Union is different from before. Even you have pledged your allegiance to the Immortal Union. The day when Starfall Sky unifies Dawn Rain Continent is probably not far away. How do you know so much?" Xiao Mao narrowed his eyes and asked. Yi Shixiang smiled and replied, Why would a person who's about to die have so many questions? I don't care what Starfall Sky wants to do. Xiao Maro looked at Yi Shixiang and said word by word, I also don't care what you collude with Starfall Sky. It doesn't matter whether I live or die, but I absolutely won't allow you to have any ideas about my senior sister. Ha ha ha. Yi Shixiang laughed loudly when he heard this. He raised his hand and pointed at Xiao Maro and said, a golden core cultivator who bowed down and begged me to bestow the opportunity to conceive a nascent soul dares to boast like this in front of me, just by relying on you, a Hanba who's comparable to a late nascent soul cultivator? She's not a Hanba. She's called Huahong. Xiao Maro calmly corrected. Xiao Mao, oh Xiao Mao. Yi Shixiang finished laughing and looked at Hanba who was called Huahong with interest and asked, do you know why I arranged the alliance with CAI clan in Sky Patrol City? Xiao Maro suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He couldn't help but ask, why? Could it be that you already knew that I have Huahong? Not only do I know that you have a Hanba, I also know that you used a soul bag to bring Hanba from Million Meng Mountains to Sky Patrol City. Yi Shixiang's expression looked more and more like a cat playing with a mouse. Xiao Mao. Fairy Hong Xia hurriedly called out, don't talk too much to him. Xiao Mao's face was distressed. He looked at Yi Shixiang and asked softly, Yi Shixiang, I don't know if you'll tell me, but I still want to ask, Qin Jian, was it you who arranged it? Qin Jian? Fairy Hong Xia heard and couldn't help but scold, Xiao Mao, what nonsense are you thinking? How could Qin Jian be arranged by the Yi clan? Senior sister. Xiao Mao turned around and said, I've never told anyone about Huahong. I only revealed it to her once because I was afraid that it would cause Qin Jian to misunderstand. Sigh. Fairy Hong Xia sighed and didn't say anything else. Yi Shixiang looked at Fairy Hong Xia and then looked at Xiao Mao's grief-stricken face. He smiled and said, if that's the case, then I might as well tell you. Qin Jian's real name is Yi Jian. He was originally a disciple of the Yi clan. When Yi Yu told the clan about you, the clan had arranged for Yi Jian to be with you. As he spoke, Yi Shixiang raised his hand and took out a sword pouch. He glanced at Hanba and said, do you think that you can protect Fairy Hong Xia's safety with Hanba by your side? I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed outside Sky Patrol City today. Woo woo. As Yi Shixiang opened the sword pouch, he didn't see what was coming out of the sword pouch, but he heard the sound of wind and snow howling within a dozen miles. The space that was originally controlled by Hanba's dry and fiery heat was suddenly filled with cold ice and wind. This cold intent was like a tidal wave that came from all directions and rushed straight into the sword pouch. Roar! With a furious roar, a huge figure flashed out of the sword pouch. Crack, crack, crack. A series of spatial cracks appeared in the nearby void. Boundless cold intent fell into the figure. A snow taper that was 100 feet in size stood steadily in mid-air. This snow taper was in the shape of an ape. Its body was covered with long snow-colored fur. Boundless cold intent overflowed from its fur. Just as the snow taper stood still, its eyes immediately emitted an ominous glint as it looked at Hanba. Damn it! When Xiao Maro saw the snow taper flying out, he cursed in his heart. Sure enough, Hanba let out a hoarse cry and waved its hands. Layers of flames immediately pounced on the snow taper. Looking at the snow taper again, it just pounded its chest with its claws and opened its mouth. A torrent of cold air was spewed out. When the cold air landed in the air, it immediately froze the nearby space. Even the ice and snow within a few hundred feet surged toward the air pillar and turned into a tide of ice that pounced on the flames. Sizzle. An ear-piercing sound was produced from the ice and fire. Boundless water vapor rose and covered everyone's eyes. Boom. At the same time when the water vapor was produced, the snow taper waved its claws forward. Amidst the rumbling sound, icicles that were dozens of feet long fell from the sky and smashed toward Hanba's fiery rainbow. Hanba's fiery rainbow was fearless when he saw the icicles approaching. He waved one hand forward and the power of his bloodline pounced on the snow taper. His other hand waved a fist and hit one of the icicles. Wherever the wind from his fist passed, flames condensed into a fire pillar that directly penetrated the icicle. As for the other icicle, Hanba only snorted. A crimson line of fire flew out of her nostrils and hit the icicle. The huge icicle melted rapidly as soon as it came into contact with the line of fire. Aoo! At this moment, the bloodline energy of the Hydorigami had already struck the snow tapir. The snow tapir roared madly while its eyes glowed crimson red, and then its entire body was covered in frost. It was like a layer of ice armor that actually froze the bloodline energy of the Hydorigami. Not only that, but the moment the ice armor was formed, waves of cold yin qi rushed out from the snow region beneath the snow tapir and entered the snow tapir's body in a frenzy. As the snow tapir roared, its body grew several times larger. With a slight movement of its claws, huge ice blocks formed around the drought demon's fiery rainbow. Fiery Rainbow was furious. She did not use her firepower. Instead, her body swayed and her arms instantly pierced through the layers of ice. She rushed to the snow tapir and fiery red spikes appeared between her fingers, piercing into the snow tapir's body. Poof, poof, poof. As soon as Fiery Rainbow's spikes pierced into the snow tapir's body, a low muffled sound was heard. Crack, crack, crack. Layers of hard ice crystals appeared from the spikes. Although they cracked instantly, they still blocked the spikes. Woo! The snow tapir suddenly lifted its head. The sound of wind whistling was heard as it hit Fiery Rainbow's abdomen. Fiery Rainbow saw that and did not dare to be slow. She hurriedly waved her arms to block it. Bang! Unfortunately, the snow tapir's strength was so great that it actually sent Fiery Rainbow flying. However, the moment she was sent flying, Fiery Rainbow pressed her hand backward. A crimson fire pillar appeared from her palm and hit the snow tapir's leg. Awoo, awoo. The hard ice was instantly destroyed. Excruciating pain came from the snow tapir's leg. The snow tapir could not help but roar. Although the snow tapir's strength was slightly weaker, it was able to draw support from the power of ice and snow of the Sky Patrol City's snowfield to fight evenly with Hydorigami. Yi Shixiang's eyes were filled with satisfaction. He turned to look at Fairy Hongxia and said, "Fairy, although I've done so many calculations, it's actually all for you. Moreover, I don't mind telling you that my Yi clan's foundation is far beyond what you've imagined. It's also far beyond what you've seen now. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 5184. There's no need to say any more. Fairy Hongxia's expression was even colder than the icy plains as she mercilessly rejected him. Kill. Yi Shixiang still wanted to say something, but above the Sky Patrol City, countless cyan sword lights soared into the sky. The Fortune Gate's disciples in front of the sword formation hesitated for a moment, then they activated their flying swords and magic artifacts and charged towards the sword formation according to their original plan. Hee. Seeing this, Yi Shixiang unconsciously smiled and said, "Fairy Hongxia, you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Since that's the case, don't blame me for using force." As he said that, Yi Shixiang raised his hand. Woo! His left arm transformed into a giant hand formed from sword lights and grabbed at Fairy Hongxia. "If you want to use force, you'll have to get past me first." Xiao Maro felt extremely guilty. He really didn't know that he had fallen into Yi Shixiang's trap from the start. He also didn't know that his good intentions had led Fairy Hongxia into a trap. However, he knew that Fairy Hongxia was definitely not Yi Shixiang's opponent. At this time, Xiao Maro was also prepared to die. He moved his body and blocked in front of Fairy Hongxia. As he chanted some inexplicable words, his arms instantly turned blood-red. Xiao Mao's hands grabbed at the air and two blood-red shadows several zhong in size shot out from his arms and grabbed at Yi Shixiang. "Junior brother Xiao, I'll help you." Fairy Hongxia naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. Seeing Xiao Maro make a move, Fairy Hongxia let out a furious roar and raised her hand to slap the top of her head. Woo! A fiery red brilliance emerged from the top of Fairy Hongxia's head and condensed into a 300-meter-long yuanying hand that grabbed at Yi Shixiang's sword-light hand. Fairy Hongxia's nascent soul hand arrived first and collided with Yi Shixiang's sword-light hand. Rumble! In a loud explosion, the two large hands were annihilated at the same time. Sword light and brilliance splashed in all directions. The surrounding space was even cracked by the shockwave. Looking at the two of them, Fairy Hongxia's body swayed and she was involuntarily sent flying several zhong. Her face was flushed red. As for Yi Shixiang, he was as steady as a boulder. His left hand suddenly made a grabbing motion and another sword-light hand appeared out of thin air. This time, the sword-light hand was much stronger than before. Before it landed, it had already sealed the space around Fairy Hongxia. Swoosh! At this moment, Xiao Mao's two blood-colored shadows swept across the sky and landed beside Yi Shixiang. Along with the descent of this blood-colored shadow, fine blood runes appeared all over Yi Shixiang's body. The blood runes were like ripples on a lake as they rippled on the surface of Yi Shixiang's body and gradually seeped into Yi Shixiang's heart meridians. Heh. Yi Shixiang controlled the sword light while looking down at his own body. He laughed. Is this the power of bloodline? Looks like this is all there is to it. Along with Yi Shixiang's voice, the flying sword in Yi Shixiang's right hand suddenly ignited. Yi Shixiang grinned maliciously and waved his hand. Roar! A several zhong long coiling dragon was born from the flying sword. It roared angrily and pounced towards the blood-colored shadow. Wherever the coiling dragon passed, the blood-colored shadow would be swept away and devoured by the coiling dragon. The coiling dragon even swung its tail and actually followed the trail of the blood-colored shadow as it pounced towards Xiao Mao. This is a Dao cultivator's spirit weapon? Xiao Mao couldn't help but cry out when he felt a suffocating spiritual beast aura assaulting his face. A feeling of innate restraint involuntarily arose from the bottom of his heart, making it hard for him to resist. Ha ha! Yi Shixiang laughed loudly and said, "That's right. I'll use your bloodline to make this old man's spirit weapon." Pfff. Xiao Mao didn't dare to be negligent. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. He hastily waved his hands and streaks of blood-colored shadows were born from his hands. As the blood-colored shadows flew out, Xiao Mao's complexion became increasingly ghastly pale. In just a few breaths, the blood essence transformed into a human figure. Go! Xiao Mao raised his hand and grabbed. With a low roar, the blood-colored shadow suddenly expanded and became several zhong long as it charged towards the coiling dragon. Boom! The human-shaped blood-colored shadow collided with the coiling dragon and was annihilated at the same time. The sound wasn't deafening, but within this sound, the space within a 300 zhong radius was corroded. Strands of indescribable pitch black seeped out from the void. Ah! Xiao Mao let out a blood-curdling scream as his body withered and collapsed in mid-air. Roar roar! Drought Demon, who had been lured away by the snow taper, sensed that Xiao Mao was injured. It roared angrily and wanted to fly back, but at this moment, Drought Demon was like a flame that had fallen into a frozen river. Although the flames were very powerful, the nearby ice and snow power was too vast. No matter how anxious it was, it couldn't break through the snow taper's blockade and couldn't get close at all. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao. Fairy Hongxia was greatly alarmed. She wanted to move her body over to help, but Yi Shixiang's sword-light hand had already descended. She didn't dare to be distracted. Her body trembled, and with a clear cry, an ice phoenix Dharma body that was several hundred zhong long flew out from Fairy Hongxia's body. Although this ice phoenix Dharma body was a Dharma body, it didn't look any different from a real ice phoenix. Once the ice phoenix appeared, a myriad of ice and snow power gushed out from the void. An aura comparable to the middle and late nascent soul stage was emitted from the ice phoenix's body. Ka. The ice phoenix spread its wings, and its sharp claws grabbed at the sword-light hand. Streaks of frost were like swords, shattering Yi Shixiang's sword-light hand. Good. When Yi Shixiang saw this, he wasn't alarmed but happy instead. He cried out, "Fairy Hongxia, I didn't expect your ice phoenix Dharma body to be so powerful." Ka. The ice phoenix let out a clear cry and flapped its wings. A murderous aura soared into the sky. The ice phoenix's phoenix eyes were filled with anger as it flew towards Yi Shixiang. Its sharp claws that streaked across the void flickered with cold light. A bone-piercing coldness was born from its sharp claws, enveloping Yi Shixiang in a radius of several hundred zhong. When he saw how powerful the ice phoenix was, Yi Shixiang's expression turned solemn. He didn't dare to be careless. Sword light surged around his body, and the flying sword in his right hand let out an ear-piercing sword cry at the same time. He gradually waved it. The outcome of Yi Shixiang and Fairy Hongxia's battle would be decided in this one strike. Right at this moment, 4 earth-shattering booms came from the ground. The mountains shook and the earth shook. An enormous and unparalleled suction force rushed out and enveloped the space where Yi Shixiang, Xiao Maro, Fairy Hongxia, and the Ice Phoenix were. They couldn't resist at all. Fairy Hongxia and the Ice Phoenix were both grabbed by a huge hand and dragged down several hundred zhong into an enormous blood vortex. Damn it! Although the majestic suction force swept past him, it had no effect on him. How could Yi Shixiang not know that Yu Tong and Yun Jiecheng had made a move? He cursed under his breath and looked down. When he looked down, even Yi Shixiang sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed, How did it become like this? On the ground, there were several mountains that stood tall in the frozen snowfield. At this time, other than the mountain that they were facing, the other 4 mountains to their left had collapsed. The collapse of these 4 mountains was different from usual. It wasn't as if the mountain rocks had collapsed and rolled around. Instead, the entire mountain had collapsed into the ground as if a huge fist had smashed the 4 mountains into the ground. Following the collapse of the mountain peaks, 4 pitch-black abysses that were more than 10 li wide appeared outside the Sky Patrol City. If it was just the abysses, Yi Shixiang might not have been so shocked. Because at this time, within the abysses, there were layers of thick purple qi that had condensed into a funnel-like purple vortex. It soared into the sky and enveloped the surrounding 100 li. Not only were the thousands of sword cultivators and the 5 aristocratic families' disciples in the Sky Patrol City trapped, but a small number of Fortune Gate's disciples were also trapped. The purple vortex that had sucked Fairy Hongxia and the Ice Phoenix avatar into it was not far away from the sword formation. Looking at the sword formation, whether it was Heavenly Gate Mountains Huangmengxiang, Shu Yenyun's Yun family's Yun Xiaoying, or Fallen Gold Mountains Yu family's Yu Xiong, they had all released their true spirit avatars under Yu Tong and Yun Guicheng's orders when the Fortune Gate's disciples attack. Even the other disciples of the 3 families who could use their avatars had also released their faint and unformed avatars. 4 Spirit Blood Curse. Yi Shixiang was indeed worthy of being the Yi family's patriarch. When he saw this scene, he immediately understood something. A kind of jealousy appeared in his eyes as he cursed inwardly, damn it, this old man only saw Fairy Hongxia's innate spirit body and neglected her Ice Phoenix bloodline. I didn't expect Yu Tong and Yun Guicheng to have this idea, but... Thinking of this, Yi Shixiang hurriedly released his divine sense to investigate. Sure enough, the 4 spirit blood curse was somewhat inverted. The 4 purple vortexes were drawn out from the ground at an oblique angle. It looked very forced and seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Boom, boom, boom. The moment Yi Shixiang released his divine sense, the 3 purple vortexes in the distance vibrated at the same time as if they were breathing. A huge undulation appeared from the ground and rushed to the top of the vortexes. Then, another 3 huge suction forces were spat out from the vortexes, pulling Huangmengxiang and her vermilion bird avatar, Yun Xiaoying and her flame dragon avatar, Yu Xiong and his silver tiger avatar, and even several other disciples and their avatars into the abyss. Woo woo! The ground shook again, and the 4 vortexes showed the same rhythm. Countless blood threads began to spread in the air like spiritual snakes as everyone fell into the abyss. Moreover, as the blood threads spread, the vortexes began to expand, enveloping even more Fortune Gate disciples. As the blood threads spread, 2 faint silver-white crystal threads stretched out from the 4 vortexes. When they reached the center of the space, they merged into 2 more threads and went deep into the 4 spirit blood curse. Weren't they standing there with complacent expressions on Yu Tong and Yun Guicheng's faces? Although Yun Guicheng did not release his fire dragon celestial body, the flames around his body circled like a dragon, scorching the surrounding void. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you to Alliance Master Daoist Xiao for your tip. Chapter 5185. In just a few breaths of time, the blood threads had already reached the top of the whirlpool and a series of crackling sounds could be heard. Countless blood threads mixed with purple qi wrapped around the disciples of the Yun, Yu, Cai, and Huang families. Arth. A series of miserable shrieks could be heard as the bodies of these disciples were minced into pieces and sucked into the whirlpool. Not good. Yi Shixiang was shocked in his heart and he hurriedly shouted, Yu Tong, what are you doing? Yu Tong glanced at Yi Shixiang indifferently and said, Young Master Yi, what is our agreement? You don't have to care about what we do. You do your thing and I will do mine. There is no need to interfere with each other. Your Yi family disciples will definitely be unharmed. This young master naturally won't care about anything else. Yi Shixiang said angrily, quickly release Fairy Hongxia. You didn't say that you wanted to harm Fairy Hongxia's life. If you did, this young master would definitely not have agreed to it. While he was speaking, countless miserable shrieks could be heard as the bodies of the patrolling Sword Gate's disciples were minced into pieces by the purple whirlpool. The 4 purple whirlpools spun like a millstone, mincing and devouring the bodies of the sword cultivators and Fortune Gate's disciples. The purple whirlpool gradually turned red. Fairy Hongxia's life isn't part of our agreement. Yu Tong looked at the 4-spirit blood curse with satisfaction before sweeping a glance at Yi Shixiang. He replied indifferently, moreover, I reluctantly agreed to the condition that you raised earlier. It's a pity that you didn't manage to persuade Fairy Hongxia, so I can only follow the original plan. However, you were actually able to see that this Yu was the mastermind behind all of this. This can be considered commendable. Then this Yu won't haggle with you about the other matter of changing the agreement without permission. The other thing that Yu Tong was talking about was naturally the moving of the 4 spirits blood curse. At this time, the 4 spirits blood curse had gradually entered a good state under Yun Jukong's control. The previous shaky state had stabilized. Strands of crystal light from the purple vortex turned into pure blood strands and rushed into the blood formation. In the void near the blood strands, indescribable ghostly sounds, distorted illusions, and other strange phenomena gradually appeared, making people know that the blood formation was in defiance of the natural order at first glance. Damn it! Yi Shixiang roared, Fairy Hongxia is this young master's Dao companion. Even if this young master has to fall out with you all, this young master will definitely save her. Young Master Yi? A blush appeared on Yu Tong's face. It was unknown whether it was because of excitement or because the blood vessels below him had begun to surge. His voice was slightly shrill. Are you prepared to be a traitor? That's right. Yi Shixiang's eyes also turned red. I'd rather have my reputation ruined than let go of a chance to obtain a Dao companion. Yu Tong's eyes were filled with ridicule. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he closed it again. He raised his hand and pointed at the huge abyss that Fairy Hongxia had fallen into and said indifferently, Young Master Yi, it's not that this Yu is looking down on you, but with your 2nd grade sword transformation strength, you're nothing in front of this Yu. If you have the ability, then go ahead and save her. However, this you will speak bluntly. If you dare to save her, then don't be afraid of throwing your life away. This. Yi Shixiang was somewhat hesitant. After all, the aura of the 4 purplish-red whirlpools was becoming increasingly powerful and had already surpassed the limits of a sword transformation swordsman's control. The snow taper and Haidarigami that were fighting earlier were also disturbed by this heavenly phenomenon and stopped fighting. Haidarigami tried his best to charge into the blood formation to search for Xiao Mao, but to no avail. How could Yi Shixiang dare to take the risk? Yu Tong smiled and said, Young Master Yi, let's not talk about what happened earlier. Our cooperation is perfect. After this matter, this Yu and junior brother Yun's strength will rise to another level. It will be even more beneficial for our cooperation. Speaking of this, Yu Tong raised his head and looked at the mountain range in the distance. After the Fortune Gate's disciples had left, peace was restored. However, at this time, sword lights appeared again like broken stars. In the sky, the wind and clouds were surging in all directions. Obviously, another wave of snowstorm was coming. Yu Tong withdrew his gaze and looked at Yi Shixiang, saying meaningfully, Moreover, the Yi clan's plan is not here. Why is young Master Yi so conflicted? Why don't you look further? As the saying goes, there are plenty of fish in the sea. How can young Master Yi hang himself on a crooked tree like Fairy Hongxia? Yi Shixiang pursed his lips and did not say a word, as if he was thinking about something. Yu Tong lowered his head and looked at the formation. The inside of the formation had become a sea of blood. Most of the sword cultivators and Fortune Gate's disciples had been turned into blood that flowed into the abyss through the vortex. Outside the sea of blood, several hundred Yi clan's disciples were standing there in a panic. They were like ants in front of a powerful force that was as powerful as heaven's will. Other than the Yi clan's disciples, there was another person who was unexpectedly struggling with all his might. This person was Xiao Mao. Even though Xiao Mao wasn't strong enough and had even been injured by Yi Shixiang, he was still a soul cultivator from the Lux village after all. Within the blood curse of the four spirits, he was able to rely on his mastery of the power of his bloodline to resist the strangulation of the blood formation. Young Master Yi, Yu Tong said half jokingly, half seriously, this Yu's patience is limited. If young master doesn't make a decision, not only will the several hundred Yi clan's disciples be trapped inside the sword formation, even young master will not be able to protect himself. At that time, I'm afraid this Yu will not be able to answer to the Yi clan's patriarch. Therefore, I ask young Master Yi to reconsider. Don't let your previous efforts go to waste. All right. Yi Shixiang finally gritted his teeth and said, regarding today's matter, this young master will take it as suffering a loss in silence. Yu Tong said coldly, young Master Yi is wrong. It's this Yu who has suffered 2 losses in silence. Yi Shixiang fiercely glared at Yu Tong. His figure swayed and he rushed out of the blood formation's range. Yu Tong said a few words to Yun Jiecheng who was controlling the blood formation, but Yun Jiecheng looked up at Yi Shixiang. Those blood-red eyes clearly revealed unwillingness. However, in the end, Yun Jiecheng waved his hand and a crack that was less than a few feet was torn open in the closed blood formation. My apologies, Yun Jiecheng said with a hoarse voice, because this sword formation deviated, this Yun can't control it as I wish. Now, I can only open up this small crack. I hope young Master Yi can understand. Well said. Young Master Yi looked at that small crack. It was like a person standing under the city wall facing a dog hole. Although he was furious, there wasn't any special expression on his face. He responded in a low voice and said loudly, Yi clan's disciples, follow this young master out. Yes. The Yi clan's disciples responded. They immediately realized that the force that was tightly suppressing them had suddenly disappeared. Everyone was ecstatic as if they had been pardoned. They immediately urged their figures to fly towards Yi Shixiang and prepared to fly out of the formation. Yi Shixiang didn't even look at them. He turned into a sword light and directly crashed into that crack that wasn't much bigger than a dog hole. Ha ha ha. When Yun Jiecheng saw Yi Shixiang flying into the crack, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. He looked at Yu Tong and said, Senior Marshal Brother Yu, this younger brother is really happy today. This younger brother doesn't dare to look at this guy's face for a long time. Yu Tong smiled faintly and said, today is just the beginning. We merely let the Yi clan's young master see our faces. After today, you and I will exchange our true spirit bloodlines for saint spirit bloodlines. After we cultivate in seclusion for a few hundred years, we can expect to split our spirit and separate our bodies. At that time, when you look at the entire Dawn Rain continent, everything will have to see your face. Everything that happened today is nothing but dust. Ha 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 ha. Yun Jiecheng looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. The flames around his body turned blood red. That flame dragon avatar once again expanded by 30%. A ferocious dragon avatar was about to leave his body. Yun Jiecheng's laughter rippled through the entire blood curse space, appearing especially enchanting. Yu Tong still had a smile on his face as he quietly watched. However, the corner of his eyes occasionally glanced at his feet. The pure bloodline power was becoming increasingly exuberant. Kill, kill, oh. Countless shouts and screams rang in Zhong Haoren's ears. Not only did these sounds stop in Zhong Haoren's ears, they also attacked his conscience. They were constantly tearing at Zhong Haoren's heart. Swoosh. An inexplicable sword light slashed under his armpit, piercing through his protective sword light and deeply piercing into his body. A burning pain came from the wound. Hiss. Zhong Haoren sucked in a breath. The immense pain made his body tremble, but at the same time, a sense of satisfaction arose. Zhong Haoran did not even lift his eyelids. With a wave of his left hand, a scarlet sword light flew out. Ah! Another scream was heard. The swordsman who had sneak attacked him died under this blow. Zhong Haoran's figure staggered slightly, but he barely managed to stand still in midair. When he looked around, the Fortune Gate disciples and Sword Cultivator disciples fighting on the left had thinned out. The sword formation on the south side of the Sky Patrol City had actually collapsed under the Fortune Gate's attacks. Without any hesitation, Zhong Haoran grabbed the hilt of the flying sword that had pierced into his body. Puff! Dirty blood splashed out. Zhong Haoran once again urged the sword origin, and a three-colored sword light gushed out from the wound to protect it. Was I wrong? Zhong Haoran did not look at his wound anymore. Instead, he lowered his head to look at the ground. The white ground was now covered in blood. The remains of hundreds of sword cultivators and Fortune Gate disciples were scattered everywhere. None of these corpses were intact. Some of them were still staring helplessly at the sky. Although their eyes were lifeless, in Zhong Haoran's eyes, it was as if he could see his own heart. Is it worth it for me to do this for the sake of the Fortune Gate's rise? Just because I'm about to die, should I use the lives of these Fortune Gate disciples to cleanse the disciples that I'm not sure of? I clearly know that this Sky Patrol City may be a bait, so why should I risk it all? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you to the Alliance Master Daoist Xiao for your tip. Thank you to all fellow Taoists for your support. Chapter 5186. Fighting spirit in one go, weakening in the second, and exhausting in the third. Although our Fortune Gate's disciples are charging into the sword formation in one go, it's obvious that these sword cultivators are avoiding our attacks. Once our Fortune Gate's disciples are slightly weakened, they will definitely launch a large-scale counterattack. At that time, it will be our Fortune Gate's time to retreat. Maybe Zhao Ming is right. After this battle in the Sky Patrol City, our Fortune Gate's disciples will grow, but what about these fallen disciples? What about the culprit who instigated the battle between our Fortune Gate and the Sky Patrol City? Is their target the Fortune Gate or the Sky Patrol City? If our Fortune Gate is defeated, do we still have a chance to survive? 1,000 regrets and 1,000 thoughts flowed into Zhong Haoran's mind like floating cotton, causing him to be unable to see the situation of the battle. Woo! At this moment, a low whistling sound came from not far away. A cultivator at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm urged his figure to break away from the battle, and flew towards the distance without the slightest hesitation. Zhong Haoran raised his gaze, and saw it clearly. Wasn't that the sect master of the Wisdom Pavilion, Wu Cheng? Hee. Zhong Haoran sneered and thought to himself, I'm relieved to have found a deserting sect master. However, just as Zhong Haoran was about to withdraw his gaze, he suddenly saw some sword lights in the sky behind him from the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment before he hurriedly turned around to look towards the south. At this time, there were already groups of people flying over from the vast snow domain. These people did not look as powerful as the Fortune Gate's disciples, but the momentum they exuded was something the Fortune Gate's disciples could not compare to. Within the momentum, layers of sword intent condensed and sealed off the Fortune Gate disciples' escape route, sure enough. Seeing this, Zhong Haoran breathed a sigh of relief as if he had finally seen the end. He whispered, "This is the sword cultivator's trap." However, before Zhong Haoran could think about why the sword cultivators would attack the Fortune Gate disciples, there were screams of ecstasy from the battle group. "Quick, look! Our sword cultivators' reinforcements are here. Kill!" Above the Sky Patrol City's southern city gates, the sword formation that looked like a cocoon was being torn apart. Groups of swordsmen flew out and pounced on the Fortune Gate's disciples who had destroyed the sword formation outside the city gates like wolves and tigers. The number of swordsmen that came later was several times more than the swordsmen that came before. Seeing so many swordsmen flying out and being surrounded by sword cultivators, the Fortune Gate disciples were already flustered. The advantage they had gained earlier collapsed in an instant. Many Fortune Gate disciples put away their flying swords and magic artifacts to protect themselves, hesitating on how to deal with the situation. More Fortune Gate disciples' figures flickered as they broke away from the battle, seemingly wanting to escape. In an instant, the whole battle was in chaos. Fortune Gate disciples, heed my command, kill. Zhongzhon's hoarse voice could be heard amidst the chaos. We can only survive if we kill our way into Sky Patrol City. Hearing Zhongzhon's words, the nearby Fortune Gate disciples were ready to attack again. They wanted to kill their way into Sky Patrol City before the sword cultivators arrived. Yang Zun Manner's disciples. Then, another loud voice could be heard. It was Cheng Jiz's voice. Heed my command, form a group and turn back. We'll take advantage of the fact that the sword cultivators have yet to form and break through the encirclement. Where's Wu City? Where's that damn Wu City? Zhao Ming's voice could also be heard amidst the chaos. Damn it. Seeing this, Zhong Haoran cursed in a low voice. He raised his hand and put it into his bosom. He had already taken out another crimson sword. Martial uncle. Fei Yunshu flew out from Zhong Haoran's left side. His clothes were also soaked in blood. He said anxiously, "It really happened, what should we do?" Although Zhong Haoran's heart was in a mess, he could not show it in front of his disciples. He smiled calmly and said, "What are you afraid of? We've already anticipated this situation and we've even discussed it. All right, this disciple will listen to martial uncle." Fei Yunshu looked at the scarlet sword in Zhong Haoran's hand and knew that Zhong Haoran had made a decision. He sighed in relief and nodded. Swoosh. In the distant battlefield, a dim golden light flashed and Zhongzhon's figure landed not far away from Zhong Haoran. Zhongzhon's robe was tattered and stained with blood. His left hand was gone, and his right hand was holding an equally broken magic treasure. Before he could steady himself, Zhongzhon angrily said, "Martial uncle, are you still thinking about the escape route at this point? This is the time to test our Fortune Gate's disciples. As long as we pass this hurdle and take down the Sky Patrol City, our Fortune Gate's name will immediately spread throughout the world. Once you give the order, all our previous plans will be for naught." Fei Yunshu was also angry. "Zhongzhon, don't you see? Our Fortune Gate's disciples are surrounded by sword cultivators. We've really fallen into their trap. The only way to escape from this trap is to retreat." "You're wrong." Zhongzhon's eyes were like fire as he resolutely shook his head and said, "We can only fight with our backs to the wall and attack the Sky Patrol City. If we don't have the heart to die, none of us will be able to escape from this hopeless situation today." "How am I wrong?" Fei Yunshu shouted. "Previously, we arranged for the Fortune Gate to surround the Sky Patrol City from all sides, with the real attack from the east, west, and south, and a feint attack from the north. This was to let the Sky Patrol City's sword cultivators know that they might not be able to defeat our Fortune Gate's disciples and escape from the north. But now, not only did the Sky Patrol City's sword cultivators not escape, they even opened the Sky Patrol City's defensive sword array and counterattacked our Fortune Gate. Our plan has been seen through by the Sky Patrol City, and they want to attack our Fortune Gate with the sword cultivators behind us. We have already expected this situation, so we can only retreat." Zhong Haoran restrained his temper and wanted to persuade Zhongzhon, but at this moment, most of the Fortune Gate's disciples on the south side of the Sky Patrol City had already started to retreat. The Burning Crane Union's Zhao Ming was giving orders in a low voice, while the Chu Hong faction's Wang Jiancheng, Cloud Pavilion Fort's Xu Zhonglin, Heaven Competing Pavilions Zhua Hong, and Yuanfeng Stockade's Zhu Ji had already gone to the east and west sides of the Sky Patrol City. Zhong Haoran did not know how they would deal with this, but since Zhao Ming was ready to escape, the other sect's chiefs would definitely not fight to the death like Zhongzhon. Sigh. Zhong Haoran sighed as a sense of helplessness rose in his heart. He no longer hesitated and opened his mouth. A blood-red flying sword flew out and hit the sword in his hand. "Martial uncle!" Zhongzhon cried out in grief, as if he had just witnessed the world's most precious thing being destroyed. Keng! The sword emitted a metallic sound and soared into the sky. After flying for more than 100 zhong, the sword emitted a thunderous boom and a light shadow rapidly emerged. A flying sword several dozen zhong in size appeared, and this scarlet flying sword soared through the sky at an extremely fast speed, piercing through the dark cloud. Swoosh! The dark clouds were pierced through, and a pillar of sunlight pierced through the dark clouds like a sword, piercing through the sky and landing on the north side of the Sky Patrol City. Go. All the Fortune Gate's disciples already had the intention to retreat. Seeing that Zhong Haoren was about to give the order to retreat, they no longer hesitated. They shouted in a low voice and urged their bodies to retreat, gathering at the south side of the Sky Patrol City. Who? Looking at the blood-red flying sword piercing through the dark clouds, Zhong Zhon's heart felt as if it had been pierced through. His eyes instantly lost their spirit, but it only lasted for a moment before they regained their determination. He looked at Fei Yunshu and Zhong Haoren and said, "Both of you, leave." "I'm not leaving, I'm going to kill my way to the Sky Patrol City." Zhong Zhon. Zhong Haoren looked at Zhong Zhon and asked word by word, "Tell this old man the truth, were you the one who issued the sect master's order?" Zhong Zhon raised his head and looked at Zhong Haoren, and said in a sad voice, "Martial uncle, even now, you still don't believe me." Zhong Zhon looked past Zhong Haoren and into the distance. He could clearly see the sword cultivators surrounding the Fortune Gate's disciples, and even the Heavenly Demon Sect's disciples' battle formation. Zhong Haoren opened his mouth and said, "Let's go, today's momentum is gone. Your momentum is gone." Zhong Zhon retracted his gaze and stared fixedly at Zhong Haoren, saying, "But my heart is not dead. Martial uncle, I know you don't believe me, but I'll say one last thing. This sect master's order was not issued by me. However, I can tell you with certainty that if this sect master's order was issued a few days later, my sect master's order would have been issued. This sect master's order is really in my heart. My Fortune Gate really needs this kind of blood test. But many people will die in this test." Fei Yunshu shouted, "Moreover, didn't you see? Today, we, and all the Fortune Gate's disciples, may die here. We can die." Zhong Zhon sneered and said, "But how can the Fortune Gate's disciples die? If they die, what's the use of my Fortune Gate? My Fortune Gate's disciples may die, but how can my Fortune Gate's spirit die? Even if the Fortune Gate is gone after today's battle, as long as Daoist Xiao's name exists, the Fortune Gate will be re-established on the Dawn Rain mainland in 100 years, or even 1,000 years. How can a Fortune Gate without blood and lives be Daoist Xiao's Fortune Gate?" Zhong Zhon took a deep breath and turned to look at the Sky Patrol City. Although the city was still on guard, many swordsmen and beast cultivators had already rushed out. Zhong Zhon said, "Martial uncle, this disciple has already expected this situation. Today's death situation. This disciple has seen it countless times in his dreams. This disciple has never thought of returning from the Sky Patrol City, so, Martial uncle, please leave. In the future, the Fortune Gate still needs Martial uncle's leadership. This traitor will stay here to pay respects to Daoist Xiao." "You." Zhong Haoren looked at the hot-blooded and impulsive Zhong Zhon who had different ideals from him. How could he not be moved by Zhong Zhon's generosity? He opened his mouth, and his lips trembled slightly. He wanted to say something, but the words were stuck in his throat. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5187. However, seeing that the closest sword cultivator was closing in on him, and hearing the battle cries coming from behind him, Zhong Haoren raised his right hand and placed it on his throat, shouting hoarsely, "Zhong Zhon, are you leaving or not? If you don't leave, this old man will die here." "Martial uncle." Zhong Zhon smiled wryly, "Don't lie to this disciple. You gave the command of the Fortune Gate to this disciple, isn't it because you have the same idea as this disciple?" Zhong Zhon turned to look at Fei Yunshu, who had not left, and said, "Yunshu, you arranged your Fortune Gate to the north of Sky Patrol City and followed us, but didn't you also see through Martial Uncle's plan? This old man's life is coming to an end, it doesn't matter where I die." Zhong Haoren said indifferently, "But you are different, you have a long lifespan, and the Fortune Gate's future depends on you. This old man has failed Daoist Xiao's trust, and I have no face to see him in the underworld. You must not follow in this old man's footsteps." Unfortunately, Zhong Zhon was unmoved. He looked coldly at Zhong Haoren and said, "Martial uncle, what's done is done, what should be done must be done. You don't need to coerce this disciple. This disciple did not listen to you in the past, And now, this disciple will not. Fei Yunshu gritted his teeth and flew to Zhong Haoren's side, shouting, "Martial uncle, since we have no intention of leaving, why do you have to do this? Why don't we kill our way over? Killing one sword cultivator is one." As he spoke, he looked at Zhongzhon and said, "Zhongzhon, although I said that I had forgiven you earlier, in reality, I still feel disdain for what you have done. Even today, I still don't think what you did in the past was honorable. However, since you want to die, I will accompany you. When we reach the underworld, I ask Daoist Xiao to judge for us." "Good." Zhongzhon nodded. "It's a deal." Zhongzhon's gaze swept over the sword Zhong Haoren was holding at his throat, and he roared, "For the Fortune Gate, for Daoist Xiao, kill." Amidst the cries of the sword cultivators, this voice sounded so lonely and desolate, yet so stubborn and so fearless. It was as if there was only one person shouting on an endless narrow road. "Kill." Fei Yunshu wasn't willing to fall behind Zhongzhon by even half a minute. Before Zhongzhon could finish shouting, he also roared angrily and dashed towards the sword cultivator. It was as if he was walking a completely different path from Zhongzhon. The end of the road was also far away, but it seemed like they were heading back to the same destination. All right. Zhong Haoren saw that his two disciples were ignoring him, but he didn't feel awkward at all. With such loyal disciples accompanying him on the road to the Yellow Springs, he wouldn't be lonely. He applauded and said, "Since that's the case, let's all go. I'm afraid that only Daoist Xiao's Yellow Springs is our true destination." Zhong Haoren had already made up his mind to die, and he didn't say anything else. He circulated his secret technique for the last time, and his body emitted a whimpering sword hum as he gradually turned into a sword. Right at this time, rumble. Countless thunderous sounds came from the sky south of the Sky Patrol City. At first, the thunderous sounds were like drizzling rain, but in the next moment, they turned into a gurgling stream. By the time Zhong Haoren and the others heard it, it had already turned into the roar of a waterfall. While Fei Yunshu was still in shock, the thunderous sounds eventually turned into surging waves, like the rumbling of war drums, enveloping thousands of li around them. Even the stubborn Zhongzhon turned pale with fright at this time. He slowed down and turned his head to look at the south. At this moment, in the originally gloomy sky behind the sword cultivators and heavenly demon sect disciples besieging the Fortune Gate, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The sky was more ferocious than the craziest tide of the Gui he sea. In the midst of the thunder, there were flickering silhouettes, as if heavenly soldiers and generals had descended from the sky. An indescribable invincible battle prowess came silently from that place. However, before the battle might could get close, a divine thought that was even more terrifying and vast than the battle might swept across the Sky Sentry city like a storm. Then, a voice that was louder than thunder was heard, "Damn it! How dare you!" Following this voice, a slender figure leaped across the sky amidst the thunder. This figure landed on the north side of the Sky Patrol City faster than lightning. Although the figure was fast, how could it be faster than Zhongzhon's 1,000 years of devout prayer? When Zhongzhon saw the familiar figure, he almost cried out, "Xiao! Daoist Xiao? Is that Daoist Xiao? How is this possible?" Zhong Haoren and Fei Yunshu naturally saw the figure that had been deeply engraved in their souls. They couldn't believe it because that figure flashed past them like a bolt of lightning. It doesn't matter if it's him or not. Zhongzhon's eyes were blazing, and his pale face was flushed red. He turned to look at the sword cultivators who were several hundred zhong away and said excitedly, "To be able to see Daoist Xiao's figure before I die, this Zhongzhon can die without regret. Kill. All of you have Daoist Xiao in your hearts, how could he let you die?" At this time, a sharp voice sounded, "Not to mention that the other Fortune Gate disciples have fled, and only the three of you are stubbornly resisting. If all of you die, how can I face Daoist Xiao's trust?" In the direction of this voice, the void was torn apart, and a huge phoenix flew out from it. Wasn't that Feng Wu? With a flap of Feng Wu's wings, Yuan Ya flew out with the devil spear in his hand. Behind him, Xiong Zhili, Wu Qing, and Kui Yingying also appeared. Yun Jichong released the Four Spirits Blood Curse, allowing Yi Shixiang to crawl out of it like a dog crawling through a hole. Yi Shixiang bit his lips as an indescribable feeling of humiliation rose from the bottom of his heart. When he escaped from the four spirits' blood curse, he took a deep breath and turned into a ray of sword light, flying more than 1,000 jong away. When he raised his head to look again, the sword formation was no longer there. Instead, a purple-red cocoon of light was emitting a bewitching radiance in midair. It resembled a poppy flower that was about to bloom. This poppy flower had yet to bloom, but it had already swallowed thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples. How could the other Fortune Gate's disciples dare to approach it? They frantically tried to escape in all directions, but even so, there were still many disciples who failed to escape from the rapidly expanding 4 blood-red vortexes inside the cocoon of light. Roar, roar! A few low growls sounded, and the snow tapir that was fighting with Hanba earlier flew back. Yi Shixiang looked at the snow tapir, then at Hanba, who was circling around the blood formation but could not find a way to enter. A cold sneer appeared on his face as he took out his sword pouch and put away the snow tapir. Then, he stood there quietly, looking at the four spirits' blood curse as if he was contemplating something. Half a cup of tea's time later, all the Yi family's disciples flew out from the four spirits' blood curse and landed beside Yi Shixiang, waiting for his orders. Yi Shixiang looked around and ordered, "All of you, quickly retreat to the Sky Patrol City." Yes. The group of Yi family's disciples complied and flew towards the Sky Patrol City. They should be here by now, right? Yi Shixiang turned to look at the east and west sides of the Sky Patrol City. The four spirits' blood curse had already taken shape and had sealed the surrounding space. Yi Shixiang's divine sense couldn't penetrate it, and even his gaze couldn't see through the distorted space. Yi Shixiang hesitated for a moment, then he flew several hundred jong away with the Yi family's disciples. At this time, a loud boom came from the distance. Yi Shixiang immediately stopped and turned to look at the source of the sound. On the south side of the Sky Patrol City, a scarlet flying sword several dozen jong in length was flying at an extremely fast speed, tearing apart the dark clouds in the sky. Coincidentally, a pillar of sunlight pierced down like a light sword. It streaked across the sky and directly landed on the four-spirit blood curse behind Yi Shixiang. Ha ha! Yi Shixiang laughed loudly and clapped his hands. Needless to say, this must be the Fortune Gate signal to retreat. Since the Fortune Gate is retreating, then the Three Swords sect and the Heavenly Demon Three sects must be here. What is there for this old man to worry about? With that said, Yi Shixiang's figure flickered as he turned into a sword light and flew under the four spirits' blood curse. It looked like he wanted to rush into the four vortexes supporting the light cocoon. However, the four spirits' blood curse had shackled the surrounding space. Layers upon layers of rock-like fluctuations had appeared in the area enveloped by the four purplish-red vortexes. These fluctuations had blocked Yi Shixiang's divine sense and even blocked his figure. Chimpage. Yi Shixiang snorted coldly. Sword light flickered around his body and turned into a giant sword in the blink of an eye. Clang! The giant sword pierced through the void, heading straight for the four spirits' blood curse. Unfortunately, even though the surrounding space was trembling, and the two vortexes closest to it were shaking, the giant sword only managed to pierce half a foot into the space before it was stopped. Yi Shixiang. Yu Tong inside the four spirits' blood curse seemed to have noticed something and roared, "What are you doing?" Hee hee. Yi Shixiang recovered from the sword light and shouted, "You dare to snatch the Dao companion that this young master has his eyes on? This young master would rather defy the old master's order, to save Fairy Hong Xia. You dare." Yu Tong was flustered and exasperated. He hurriedly urged his figure to fly out of the four spirits' blood curse to stop him. Yi Shixiang didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly raised his hand and took out the flying sword that was shining with a fiery red sword light. Pfff. Yi Shixiang spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Boom boom boom. The giant sword let out a rumbling sound. The ancient runes on the giant sword started to swim like tadpoles. In just a moment, the blood essence dyed all the tadpoles. Then, with a series of popping sounds, all the tadpoles exploded. The broken runes fell off like crumbs. Following the disappearance of the runes, rays of dazzling golden light blossomed from the flying sword. In the end, the crimson-red sword light faded away, revealing a magic weapon that looked like a golden swordbreaker. Pride appeared in Yi Shixiang's eyes. He casually shook his hand. Roar! A dragon-like roar came from the golden swordbreaker. Layers of golden light broke free from the golden swordbreaker and transformed into the shape of a flood dragon. Sigh. Spirit weapon? Yu Tong was shocked when he saw this and cried out, "You! How can you use my Dao cultivator's spirit weapon? Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, tip it, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 5188. Haha. Seeing this, Yi Shixiang couldn't help but laugh out loud. This young master has already told you, my Yi clan is definitely not what you see. There's no need for that in the future. This young master will let you experience it today. After he finished speaking, Yi Shixiang activated his sword energy and the golden rapier in his right hand struck the void. Roar! The golden rapier transformed into a flood dragon and pounced towards the space sealed by the 4-spirit blood curse. Crack, crack, crack. The void shattered and the restriction collapsed. The restriction under the 4-spirit blood curse was instantly shattered by the golden rapier. Damn it! Yu Tong shouted with a stern expression. Yi Shixiang, you dare to spoil this Yu's plans? This you will not rest until you're dead. Since you want to not rest until you're dead, then so be it. Yi Shixiang laughed nastily. Speaking of which, do you think this young master is afraid of you? As he spoke, Yi Shixiang actually swung the golden rapier again. This time, the golden rapier smashed towards the mountain peak that was supporting the 4-spirit blood curse. Boom! The golden rapier transformed into a dragon and hit the center of the mountain peak. With an earth-shaking sound, the huge peak of the mountain was actually shattered by the golden rapier. A small half of the peak collapsed with a crash. The 4-spirit blood curse was like a flower bud that had its stem cut off as it slowly fell from the sky. ZZZ. Under the 4-spirit blood curse, the 4 purplish-red whirlpools let out a cryptic sound and abruptly shrank as if they were about to collapse. Hee hee. Yi Shixiang laughed wildly. His figure flashed as he charged towards the abyss that Fairy Hongxia had fallen into. The golden rapier in his hand dimmed. It was obvious that Yi Shixiang couldn't use it continuously. Ha ha ha. Before Yi Shixiang could fly closer, he heard the same wild laughter coming from within the 4-spirit blood curse. Yu Tong's excited voice sounded, "Yi Yaotian, you truly deserve to die. You actually dared to spoil immortal Envoy Wen's plans. When he finds out, won't he peel off your skin?" Ah! Yi Shixiang's figure trembled as he raised his head in astonishment. The expression on his face clearly froze as he argued, "You. What did you say? Why can't I understand?" Unfortunately, Yu Tong didn't pay any attention to him. He rubbed his hands together and several thick rays of crystal light appeared. Then Yu Tong waved his hands like butterflies and formed a series of strange seals. As the seals formed, an inexplicable fluctuation appeared and 4 different colored figures appeared around Yu Tong. This. Yi Shixiang was stunned. He seemed to have thought of something as an incredulous expression gradually appeared on his face. He didn't dare to rashly use the golden mace that he was waving and instead, he tightly protected his body. In the blink of an eye, 4 figures of light appeared around the jade board. They were in the shape of a dragon, a phoenix, a tiger, and a vermilion bird. Dang! Yu Tong raised his hand and flicked it. Like the sound of a huge bell, the phoenix figure flew out and fell into the whirlpool that Fairy Hongxia fell into. Woo woo! A strange wind blew out from the whirlpool. Then, with a shua, the 4-spirits blood curse that was originally tightly wrapped around the whirlpool bloomed like a flower. A powerful aura spread out in all directions. The earth shook and the purplish-red whirlpool shrank rapidly. Below the earth, a crystal that was thousands of feet in size flew out from the abyss. This crystal was completely transparent and was greenish-white in color. Fairy Hongxia was sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the crystal. The ice phoenix celestial body that was spreading its wings was frozen in the center of the crystal. Boom boom! The crystal flew into the sky along with the whirlpool. Wherever it went, space collapsed. All of the purplish-red whirlpools were sucked into the crystal and absorbed by the ice phoenix. Ayo ayo! In the distance, the anxious Haidarigami finally found an opening. He roared and pounced into the 4-spirit blood curse. He rushed into one of the whirlpools. Xiao Maro was already powerless to struggle. His body was slowly being torn apart and gradually fell into the edge of the whirlpool. Yu Tong did not even look at Haidarigami. He flicked his finger again. Dang! The vermilion bird figure flew into another whirlpool. Huang Mengxiang's eyes were tightly shut. A fiery red vermilion bird figure was also frozen in the crystal. Like Fairy Hongxia, it was slowly being pulled out of the ground. The ice phoenix and vermilion bird crystals flew out. The crystal that fell under Yun Guicheng's feet immediately detached from his body and flew to the two crystals like a spiritual snake, entangling them. Then, a gloomy coldness mixed with a black shadow completely enveloped one side of the four-spirit blood curse. Senior Yu. Yun Jiecheng was originally channeling the blood curse of the four spirits with all his might, but when Yi Shixiang destroyed the mountain peak, he suddenly discovered that his magic power was everywhere in the void. Everything was out of his control. At this moment, the crystal light had also disappeared, causing him to be at a loss. He could not help but ask softly, "What? What's going on?" Dang! Yu Tong did not answer Yun Guicheng. Instead, he flicked his finger and the tiger-shaped light figure fell into a whirlpool. Boom! This time was different from before. A roar sounded from the whirlpool. A huge suction force grabbed Yun Guicheng like a giant hand. Yun Guicheng was shocked. He asked anxiously, "Senior Yu, what's going on?" Seeing that Yun Guicheng was being grabbed by the suction force, Yu Tong smiled faintly and said, "Junior Yun, thank you. The Flame Dragon is an extremely important true spirit bloodline in the four-spirit blood curse. How can I not have you to urge the four-spirit blood curse?" But Yun Guicheng felt that his physical body was gradually being torn apart. He really did not expect that his previous vigilance would come true in the end. However, he still did not dare to believe it. Doesn't the Flame Dragon bloodline have Yun Xiaoying? Didn't the four-spirit blood curse? I also set it up bit by bit. Yun Xiaoying is a female cultivator. How can she bear the Flame Dragon bloodline? Yu Tong smiled and said, "Also, the four-spirit blood curse you set up is only a four-spirit blood curse. It's not the formation I wanted to set up." Then, Yun Guicheng's flesh had already started to shatter. He still shouted with his eyes wide open, "Then why, me?" At this moment, Yi Shixiang snorted coldly in the distance. "Idiot! You've been used by Yu Tong. This young master has also been used by him. Although the four-spirit blood curse you set up was not wrong and this young master has even moved the position of the four-spirit blood curse, it did not affect his plan at all. Also, your four-spirit blood curse is not complete. Only by overturning the mountain that supports the four-spirit blood curse will the four-spirit blood curse truly take shape. This young master wanted to destroy the four-spirit blood curse, but I didn't expect that it would still complete the four-spirit blood curse. I understand." Yun Guicheng's face turned distressed. He looked at Yu Tong and said softly, "Senior Martial Brother Yu, could it be that this plan of yours has already started 1,000 years ago?" Yu Tong nodded and said, "That's right. From the moment this young master saw you, your fate has already been decided. There are very few humans in this world who possess the true spirit bloodline. If I don't use you, who else can I use? Asking a tiger for its skin Yun Guicheng smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect that I would still die in the hands of the person I trust the most in the end." "Don't talk about trust," Yu Tong said coldly. "You don't have the right to say this. You're just using each other. Perhaps Fairy Hongxia and Huang Mengxiang have the right to say this." Catcher. With the sound of bones being torn apart, Yun Guicheng was dragged into the whirlpool while screaming miserably. Woo woo. Just as Yun Guicheng fell into the whirlpool, a strange sound came from the edge of the whirlpool. Drought Demon was protecting Xiao Maro. Because the two of them could not resist the suction force, their bodies glowing with blood-red light also fell into the whirlpool. Then, with a rumbling sound, Yun Xiaoying and the Flame Dragon celestial body also turned into crystals and flew out. However, Yun Xiaoying had already turned into an empty shell. Her flesh and blood had long been mince. As the third crystal flew out, a layer of heat and light was born from the crystal, piercing into the void and separating the entire space from the ice phoenix and the vermilion bird. Yi Shixiang narrowed his eyes and watched all of this. He sensed a kind of barrier that he could not resist slowly appearing from the light and darkness. An inconceivable feeling arose. His figure was pushed back. Even the dragon image of the golden Jian could not resist. He looked at Yu Tong again. He was not in a hurry to push the last tiger-shaped light shadow into the whirlpool. Instead, he formed hand seals again and sent rays of light into the three crystals. Countless strange light shadows were born. Waves of movements that seemed like the groans of heaven and earth were emitted. Gradually, all the light shadows and strange phenomena converged into the three crystals. This, Yi Shixiang asked in a deep voice, this is the legendary Four Spirits sacred body, right? Oh. Yu Tong raised his brows. His hands did not stop forming hand seals. Instead, he looked at Yi Shixiang with slight surprise and said, Yi Yaotian, your knowledge is not bad. You can actually see that this is the Four Spirits sacred body. This time, Yi Shixiang did not deny it. Instead, he asked back, the so-called Four Spirits sacred body is a physical body condensed from the bloodline of the Four Sacred Spirit. Even my Yi clan does not know about this kind of secret technique. It seems like only the people of the immortal world know about it. Yu Tong, where did you come from? At this point, Yi Yaotian, who had transformed into Yi Shixiang, suddenly asked, who exactly are you? Where is immortal emissary Wen? Ha ha. Yu Tong raised his head and laughed loudly. He said, Yi Yaotian, oh Yi Yaotian, where could immortal emissary Wen be? He's far away on the horizon, but right in front of you. As he spoke, Yu Tong pointed at the last tiger-shaped light shadow. That light shadow fell into the whirlpool with a dang sound. Then, an enormous suction force actually firmly grabbed Yu Tong himself. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Chijian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, R Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Du and Demonflower, and so on for their tips. Today, I'll add more chapters for you guys. Some of the names of the members were not completely counted. I hope everyone can understand. Also, if nothing unexpected happens, today will be the last time I'll update 10 times in a row before the end of God Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it and cherish it. Chapter 5189. Woo Woo. A faint black shadow suddenly emerged from Yu Tong's forehead, and a human figure the size of a thumb flew out from within. This figure wasn't complete, and it looked scattered. Between each fragment, there were strange distortions, and within each fragment, there were different degrees of dark light trembling. Following the appearance of the human figure, countless bright silver immortal qi emerged from the void, rushing into the shadows like strands of hair. A moment later, a thumb-sized figure flashed with silver light and appeared. Although this figure was very small, the silver light it emitted was so brilliant, and the aura it emitted was so fierce and vast that it actually caused the void to collapse. Your immortal envoy Wen? Damn it, why didn't this old man think of it? Seeing this aura, Yi Yaotian's entire body went limp. He let out a low cry, wanting to escape, but he couldn't even move a finger. Yi Yaotian, the silver figure said indifferently, this old man is only willing to cooperate with you because you're the head of the Yi family. It's a pity you don't know how to cherish it. If you didn't ruin this old man's plans today, when this old man controls the Dawn Rain continent in the future, it would be the day your Yi family dominates the world. Today, you've truly disappointed this old man. Following the silver figure's words, Yu Tong's body was also minced, falling into the vortex. At the same time, the Yu family disciple named Yu Yinsong was left with only an empty shell, flying out with the silver tiger body. Immortal envoy, please spare my life. Immortal envoy, please spare my life. Yi Yaotian couldn't care about anything else, and hurriedly begged, since you need subordinates in the Dawn Rain continent, this junior and my Yi family disciple are willing to serve immortal envoy. The human heart. The silver figure said indifferently, why is it always like this? The previous opportunity was right in front of you, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Only now do you know how to regret it. Do you know how many people in this world wish for such an opportunity? As he spoke, the silver tiger's crystal flew to the same place as the flame dragon's crystal. Whoosh! 4 bursts of innate bloodline power surged out of the 4 crystals at the same time, spreading in all directions. Of course, the bloodline power only spread out for several kilometers before sweeping violently and crashing into the center of the 4 crystals like a myriad of streams returning to their origin. Hong! The bloodline powers collided, and a deep sound was heard. After this sound, the 4 bloodline powers merged into one place, piercing deep into the void. Ka. The continuous sound pierced through layer after layer of void, and finally piercing into an unknown place. Then, the aura of the ice phoenix and vermilion bird's crystals, ants, the darkness and coldness and darkness. At the same time, the heat and light of the flame dragon's and silver tiger's light also turned into a light curtain, and the aura's aura. At the same time, the heat and light of the flame dragon and silver tiger's aura. Ha ha ha! The silver figure saw a spot of blood appear where the light and shadow fell, and laughed wildly. He waved his hands, and the 2 rays of light that were entangling the 4 crystals were instantly filled with blood-red light. They pierced straight into the light, and his body swayed, about to fall into it. Rumble, rumble, rumble. At this time, the space that was sealed by the 4 spirits' blood curse was suddenly broken apart by thunder. Yi Yaotian, who didn't know what was happening outside, suddenly heard the sound of thunder from outside the blood curse. At this moment, a divine sense as vast as the heavens came from the distance. After sweeping through the 4 spirits' blood curse, a burst of incomparable anger came from the divine sense. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The seemingly indestructible seal was instantly shattered by the divine sense. The 4 crystals that were about to fuse together began to tremble, and began to fall. Damn it! The silver figure was shocked, and he roared, Luo Xingtian, you dare to break this daddies. No, you're not Luo Xingtian, you actually have the strength of a great saint of the demon race? Following the silver figure's shocked roar, a voice louder than thunder came, damn it! How dare you! Following that, a tall and thin cultivator streaked across the sky faster than lightning, and instantly landed on the 4 spirits' blood curse. This cultivator's phoenix eyes were slanted, and those starry eyes were filled with anger. Xiao Hua! The silver figure was inexplicably shocked, and shouted in disbelief. Yi Yaotian also cried out, Spiritual Master Xiao? You're not dead yet. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's gaze was fixed on Fairy Hongxia, who was sealed in the crystal, and completely ignored their shock. The silver figure suddenly understood something, and without any hesitation, his body swayed, and a silver light flashed, and he immediately disappeared from the spot. He had been killed by the great saint of the demon race and the celestial envoy's human form. How could he not know the power of the great saint of the demon race? The moment the silver figure disappeared, Xiao Hua laughed coldly, and said, If I don't kill you, how can I dare to see Fairy Hongxia? After saying that, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the sword gourd. Following the activation of the spirit-slaying vital light, a black and white ray of light shot out from the sword gourd, and directly into the void. The void was torn apart, and pieces of it collapsed. The black and white ray of light blocked the void, and the already disappeared silver figure appeared from the void. Seeing the silver figure appear, within the black and white ray of light, the spirit-slaying vital light split into 2 colors, yin and yang, and ferociously rushed forward. Wherever the yin and yang light passed, everything was destroyed. Regardless of whether it was the collapsed void, or the spiritual pressure of the silver figure, nothing could stop it. Pu. With a soft sound, the spirit-slaying vital light landed on the head of the panicking silver figure. Roar! As if in pain, a tiger's roar came from the silver figure, and a silver light like a white tiger appeared from the silver figure's head, blocking the spirit-slaying vital light. Ah, spirit! Spirit-slaying vital light? How can there be spirit-slaying vital light in the Dawn Rain continent? The silver figure was shocked, and shouted in disbelief. Xiao Hua looked at the silver figure and the tiger-shaped silver light, and couldn't help but think of the immortal messenger with the surname Shun, and Fire Phoenix King's words. He raised his hand, and stopped the spirit-slaying vital light, and asked, Is your surname Wen? Yes, yes. The silver figure heard, and quickly nodded. This old man is immortal messenger Wen. En. Xiao Hua nodded, and said, since it's like this, you can die. With that, Xiao Hua used his hand to point again. Pu. With a soft sound, the spirit-slaying vital light slightly trembled, and pierced through the tiger-shaped silver light, and deeply pierced into the immortal human figure. How? How is this possible? The silver figure shouted, and then no longer made any sound. And Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a dark green crystal light landed between the silver figure's eyebrows. Haha, you came at the right time. At this time, a sound came from the sky, and sunlight scattered everywhere. The void was torn, and Huang Tong flew out. He saw the dim silver figure wave his hand, and threw a few people into the air. He spread his wings and landed, and protected Xiao Hua. He shouted, I have worked so hard for so long, no one can fight with I for this great tonic. Xiao Hua's face was like frost, and he retracted his finger. With the spirit-slaying vital light in the sword gourd intersecting, Pu. The dim silver figure's head fell from the silver light, as if the real head was killed by the spirit-slaying vital light. Gah! Seeing the silver figure being destroyed, Huang Tong, who was guarding at the side, opened his mouth, and the tiger-shaped silver light was immediately swallowed by him. Rays of silver light seeped out of his body. His demon body swelled uncontrollably. Countless stars and moon powers appeared in the void around him. However, it only lasted for a moment before Huang Tong flapped her wings. The power of the stars and moon disappeared, and all the strange phenomena disappeared. Why did you bring them here? Xiao Hua looked at the three people brought by Huang Tong, and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Didn't you go to imprison Dong Shanyi? Huang Tong shrugged and smiled. I was going to return to the Imperial Thunder Sect after imprisoning Dong Shanyi, but on the way back, I heard that the Fortune Gate was coming to the Sky Patrol City to stop the marriage between Fairy Hongxia and the Yi clan. I knew that if you were not in the Sky Patrol City, you must be on your way here, so I came directly to the Sky Patrol City. On the way here, I met the three of them who were also rushing to the Sky Patrol City, so I brought them here. Oh, also, thanks to your help, I don't want to talk about the excitement on the way here. The Fortune Gate's name has spread across the entire Dawn Rain continent. Almost all the sect masters of the so-called Three Kingdoms of Cultivation have brought their disciples here. Xiao Hua's lips curled into a sneer, and he looked at the distant horizon, and said, they should be here. The Dawn Rain continent is no longer under their control. If they don't come, they will be kicked out of this continent. Daoist Master Xiao. A timid and anxious voice urged, Hongxia, is she okay? This voice naturally belonged to Cai Zhuoxia. Since Cai Zhuoxia had appeared, how could Li Zongbao not come? Li Zongbao nodded at Xiao Hua, and did not urge him. He knew that Xiao Hua had a sense of propriety, and Xiao Hua was more anxious than Cai Zhuoxia. Greetings, Daoist Master Xiao. After Yi Yin respectfully bowed to Xiao Hua, his gaze fell on Yi Yaotian, who was beside him, who was in a daze. Daoist Cai, don't worry. Xiao Hua said to Cai Zhuoxia, this is a demonic formation to achieve the four-spirit sacred body, and it is mixed with immortal spiritual energy. Although I already know the method to break the formation, it involves the lives of 3 people, so I still need to think carefully. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Chidian to subscribe to support, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, Ah Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonflower, and so on for their rewards. Today, I will update for you, but some of the names of the people are not fully recorded. I hope everyone can understand. Also, if there are no accidents, today is the last update before the end of the Cultivation God. I hope everyone likes it, and cherish it. Chapter 5190. Alright. Cai Zhuoxia did not dare to urge him. She only said one word and did not say anything else. Li Zongbao stretched out his hand and held on to Cai Zhuoxia's small hand. However, he felt that Cai Zhuoxia's hand was covered in sweat. Clearly, she was extremely worried. Who would have thought that Xiao Hua did not look at the 4 crystals? Instead, he turned his head to look at Yi Yaotian and said, You are the Yi clan's patriarch? Spiritual Master Xiao, please spare my life. Spiritual Master Xiao, please spare my life. Yi Yaotian saw that Xiao Hua had easily killed Emissary Wen. That aura that he found hard to describe was emitted from Emissary Wen's body. He knew that he was definitely not Xiao Hua's opponent. He hurriedly knelt down and said, this was all Emissary Wen's orders. Even if this junior had the guts as big as the sky, he would not dare to provoke Irari. If this old man did not search your soul, I'm afraid that I would have been deceived by you. Xiao Hua sighed. He looked at Yi Yaotian and said, moreover, this old man was entrusted by Yi Zhen. I also wanted to protect your Yi clan. However, you were extremely daring. You actually dared to scheme against this old man's Dao companion. Even if you died 10,000 times, it would still not be able to extinguish the anger in this old man's heart. When Yi Yaotian heard the name Yi Zhen, he was so scared that his soul flew out of his body. He immediately collapsed in midair. Logically speaking, you are merely a third-grade sword transformation realm cultivator. With this old man's status, I should not make things difficult for you. Xiao Hua's face was cold. He said in a low voice, however, with this kind of karma, how could this old man let others do it? After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua did not seem to use any divine ability. Ka-cha-cha! A layer of lightning surged out from Yi Yaotian's body. In an instant, Yi Yaotian was killed. Within the lightning, a human-shaped primordial spirit struggled to fly out. However, the merciless lightning instantly annihilated it. Yi Yaotian's body and soul were destroyed. Xiao Hua raised his hand again, and Yi Yaotian's sword pouch fell into his hand. Xiao Hua looked at it for a moment, then took out the spirit artifact and stored the sword pouch into his bosom. His eyes were looking at the four spirits' blood curse, and his divine sense was probing the spirit artifact. Although they knew that there were reinforcements coming from afar, and they even seemed to have seen Zhenren Xiao, who they often saw in their souls, Zhong Haoren, Fei Yunshu, and Zhong Zhon knew that it was just water in the distance that could not quench their thirst. The sword cultivator from the Celestial Patrol City had already flown close to them, and they could no longer see the sun of tomorrow. They looked at each other. Their previously despairing hearts were now filled with hope, and an inexplicable joy surged into their hearts. For Zhenren Xiao. A soundless cry came from their hearts. The three of them urged their sword lights and Jinyuan to rush toward the sword cultivator like moths to a flame. They wanted to emit the last bright light before they died. At this critical moment, Fengwu arrived and released Yuan Ya and the others. Yuan Ya stood in midair and immediately saw the danger Zhong Haoren and the others were in. He roared, "Who dares to hurt my Fortune Gate's disciples?" As he spoke, he swung the devil spear in his hand. Swish! There was no surge of devil chi, and the spear's afterimages killed all the sword cultivators in front of Zhong Haoren and the others. Yuan Ya did not say anything. He waved his hand and pulled the three of them up into the sky. As for the other Celestial Patrol City's sword cultivator disciples, they paused for a moment when Yuan Ya made his move. Then, they rushed toward the Fortune Gate's disciples who were fighting with the Void Heaven Sword School in the south. They knew they were no match for Yuan Ya, so they didn't even bother to look. Yuan Ya arrogantly swept his gaze over these ant-like sword cultivators. He disdained to make a move. Zhong Haoren and the others were still in a state of shock. They looked at Yuan Ya and the Fengwu in confusion. Zhong Haoren was about to say something when Fengwu's eyes flashed with joy. He exclaimed, "Oh my, there's actually something good." But before he could finish, Fengwu's figure disappeared in a flicker. Senior. With Fengwu gone, the pressure in the sky was greatly reduced. Zhong Haoren's mouth was dry. He looked at Yuan Ya, Xiong Zhili, and the others, then saluted Yuan Ya, "Junior, thanks Senior for saving my life. May I know if Senior, Zhong Zhon was the most alert?" He had heard Yuan Ya's shout at the critical moment. When he saw Zhong Haoren saluting Yuan Ya, he bowed to Xiong Zhili and the others, "Junior Zhong Zhon, thanks Senior for saving my life. May I ask if Senior is also a Fortune Gate's disciple?" Yuan Ya ignored Zhong Haoren. It was not that he looked down on Zhong Haoren, but he did not understand the situation on the Dawn Rain mainland and was unwilling to speak. At this time, Xiong Zhili looked regretful as he said to Zhong Zhon, "Ari, It's a pity that I'm not a Fortune Gate's disciple. Then, Zhongzhon was stunned and turned to look at Yuan Ya in confusion. At this time, Xiong Zhili's drawling voice sounded again. I want to enter the Fortune Gate, but foster father said that there is no need for me to enter. The Fortune Gate belongs to him, which means it belongs to me. Ah. Zhongzhon was shocked. He looked at Xiong Zhili again, and a bad feeling rose in his heart. Don't listen to his nonsense. Yuan Ya couldn't help but say, Sect Master has said that the Fortune Gate belongs to all Fortune Gate's disciples. Yuan Ya suddenly raised his head and looked at the east side of the Sky Patrol City. A sharp sword light was rushing towards them like a meteor. The sword light's momentum seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. His name is Xiong Zhili, a disciple of the lightning-controlling sect's Thousand Lightning Valley. He is also Daoist Xiao's foster son. You can ask him if you have any questions. As Yuan Ya said this, his figure flickered, and a brilliant light surged around him. In just a moment, his fierce demonic aura blocked the sword light. Xiong Zhili? You're Xiong Zhili? Zhong Haoren was even more shocked. He looked at Xiong Zhili and said, You. What's wrong? Haven't you seen such a young nascent soul realm senior? Xiong Zhili asked with a smile, Why aren't you coming over to greet him? Yes. Zhong Haoren, Zhongzhon, and Fei Yunshu were overjoyed. They hurriedly tidied up their blood-stained robes and prepared to greet Xiong Zhili. Xiong Zhili was obviously joking with them. Seeing that the three of them were serious, he hurriedly waved his hand to support them. He smiled and said, Don't. I'm just joking with you. You are my Fortune Gate's great heroes. It's more appropriate for me to greet you. If you greet me, won't Godfather scold me? Xiong Zhili quickly took out some medicinal pills and handed them to the three of them. He said, These are the medicinal pills bestowed by Godfather. Quickly, take them. Yes. Zhong Haoren and the others were so happy that their eyes were wet. They hurriedly swallowed the medicinal pills. Wu Qing looked at Zhongzhon's broken arm and said indifferently, We don't dare to touch your injuries. When the battle is over, we'll ask the Bear Palm Gate and the others. Their medicinal pills are the most suitable. At the very least, we'll ask Senior Brother Xiao to help. Bear Palm Gate? Senior Brother Xiao? Fei Yunshu looked at the young man with unfathomable strength in front of him. So, it's Senior Wu Qing. Zhongzhon was pleasantly surprised. He hurriedly bowed and said, Junior has long heard of Senior's name, but I didn't expect to meet you today. You are a Fortune Gate's great hero, there's no need to be so polite. Wu Qing's expression remained unchanged as he helped Zhongzhon up. Since they knew that one of the two cultivators in front of them was Xiong Zhili and the other was Wu Qing, Kui Yingying's identity was obvious. Zhong Haoren and Fei Yunshu hurriedly saluted Kui Yingying. Get up. Kui Yingying's voice was still shy, and her face was flushed red. She helped the two of them up, then took out a jade bottle and handed it to Zhongzhon. This is a medicinal pill given to me by Gate Master Li Xiong. He said it's for Fortune Gate's disciples to treat external injuries. Try it. This is Senior's medicinal pill, Junior doesn't dare to take it. Zhongzhon hurriedly waved his hand to decline. Quickly take it. Kui Yingying said in a low voice, Your injuries are very serious, and we don't know when this battle will end. Don't damage your Dao Foundation. Many thanks, Senior. Zhongzhon thought for a moment, then bowed. The Fortune Gate's medicinal pills were naturally created by the heavens and earth. After Zhongzhon took the medicinal pill, his severed arm began to grow, and his palm was slowly forming. Zhong Haoren. Xiong Zhili squinted his eyes as he looked at the sword qi in the distance. It was hard to tell whether he was mocking or envious as he said, You're really something. A Fortune Gate summoning order actually caused such a huge battle. Zhong Haoren was a little frightened, and he bit his lip as he said, This matter is far from what Senior thinks. Junior and the others have also fallen into someone else's trap. Oh? Xiong Zhili asked curiously, What's going on? Zhong Haoren was about to speak when Wu Qing interrupted, Let's talk as we walk. The battle over there is in full swing, we can't just stand by and watch, right? Kui Yingying's eyes were sharp, and she saw an intermediate gold core cultivator in a critical situation. She hurriedly pointed at him and said, "That cultivator is in danger, I'll go and rescue him." Zhong Zhon's gaze swept over, and he said coldly, "That's Wu Cheng from the Intelligent Pavilion. He seemed to be the one who led the escape." Xiong Zhili snorted, "This young master hates those who run away from battle the most. Junior sister, don't bother with him. It's better if he dies." Yes, eldest senior brother. Although Kui Yingying couldn't bear to see him die, she still listened to Xiong Zhili and didn't move. Zhong Haoran said in a low voice, "Actually, the situation was critical at that time, martial uncle." Fei Yunshu hurriedly reminded, when Wu Cheng escaped, the sword cultivators who surrounded him had yet to appear. "Okay." Zhong Haoran was a little dejected, but he asked again, "Senior, what's the deal with the Bear Palm Gate and Gate Master Li Xiong that you mentioned earlier?" "Of course these two are the Gate Masters of the Fortune Gate," Xiong Zhili said with a smile, but he had just said a few words when he became impatient again. He turned to Kui Yingying and said, "Junior sister, Li Xiong taught you a lot of cultivation techniques, so you must be familiar with the Fortune Gate. Why don't you tell me? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, R Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonis, Daoist Xiao, Little Zhenjian, The Blueski 1, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Divinity Cultivation Fan, Guff 854, 7985, and so on. Today, I'll add more chapters for you, but some of the names are not fully accounted for, so I hope everyone can understand. Also, if there are no accidents, today is the last time I'll update 10 times in a row before the finale. I hope everyone likes it and cherishes it. Chapter 5191. Yes, eldest senior brother. Kui Yingying responded as usual and slowly told him what she knew about the Fortune Gate. Zhong Haoran, Fei Yunshu, and Zhong Zhon listened attentively and flew to the battlefield under the protection of the three nascent soul masters. Zhong Haoran and the others were naturally saved from death's door. On top of the Sky Patrol City, the quilted mountain sect's Xue Cheng was dumbfounded. He did not panic when he saw the Fortune Gate's Sky Patrol City's sword formation being defeated. He only looked into the distance and wanted to know what other tricks the Fortune Gate had up their sleeves. However, when he saw the sword Qi, he was overjoyed. Before he could send out the signal to attack, Yi Ji Yuxing sent him a message. After reading the message, Xue Cheng understood that the sword cultivator who came from afar might not be the reinforcements. Moreover, he also understood something in an instant. However, before he could fly to Yi Guxing for a discussion, Yi Guxing's second message arrived. The message clearly stated that even if the sword cultivators besieging the Fortune Gate were enemies and not friends, they were still sword cultivators from the Huan country. The three swords gates guarding the Sky Patrol City had already lost the initiative by not knowing that the Fortune Gate was besieging the Fortune Gate. Their current plan was to kill the Fortune Gate's disciples first and let the incoming sword cultivators face the Sky Patrol City directly. Therefore, the bloodthirsty Xue Cheng did not hesitate and released almost all the sword and beast cultivators. When he saw the Fortune Gate's disciples fleeing in panic and Zhong Haoran, Fei Yunshu, and Zhong Zhon dying, a trace of excitement appeared in his heart. However, this excitement was instantly erased by Xiao Hua's divine sense and the thunderous battle prowess of the Fortune Gate's disciples. When Feng Wu appeared and Yuan Ye killed hundreds of sword cultivators, he was completely stunned. Before Feng Wu could fly away, he had already left the Sky Patrol City's south gate and flew to the east gate. What a joke! Not to mention the demon clan that was as vast as the stars, even the sword formation of the Sky Patrol City could not withstand the power of the spear from the Taoist cultivator who held the Devil Spear. What was the use of staying at the south gate? Jiyu Zhenyu. Before he reached the Sky Patrol City's east gate, Xue Cheng shouted, "What's going on?" Almost at the same time, a light broke through the sky from Xue Cheng's left and Zhuang Hong's voice sounded, "Jiyu Zhenyu, hey." Xue Cheng sneered. He knew that the west gate was naturally further away from the east gate than the south gate was from the east gate. Zhuang Hong had arrived right after him. Zhuang Hong had left his post earlier than him. Xue Cheng focused his gaze and saw that the battle situation at the Sky Patrol City's East Gate was similar to the South Gate. The Mountain Patrol Sword Sect's disciples were the closest to the Sky Patrol City. There were about 100,000 of them, and the ones facing them were the Dawn Rain Continent's Fortune Gate's disciples. After the Dawn Rain Continent's Fortune Gate's disciples, there were some Sword Cultivator and Dao Cultivator's disciples. There were also many of them, about 100,000 of them. However, they did not attack the Dawn Rain Continent's Fortune Gate's disciples. Instead, they turned around and attacked the Dao Cultivator's disciples behind them. The number of Dao Cultivator's disciples that arrived at the end was not many, perhaps 100,000 of them. However, these disciples were the strongest, and the hundreds of thousands of Sword Cultivator and Dao Cultivator's disciples were no match for them. The battle situation was very similar to the battle between the Sky Patrol City and the Fortune Gate's disciples. Zhuang Hong only took a glance and hurriedly said, "Yi Zhenyu, there's no need to look anymore. The situation here is similar to the Sky Patrol City's West Gate. I'm here to ask for your advice because I don't understand. What should we do next?" Yi Guxing shook his head slightly and replied, "I don't know either. My Mountain Patrol Sword Gate's disciples have been sent out. Other than the disciples maintaining the sword formation, there's no one else in the Sky Patrol City that can be used. Moreover, the situation is unclear, so we can't participate in the battle personally." Xue Cheng retracted his gaze and looked at Yi Guxing and Zhuang Hong. He said, "Although I don't know what happened, I know who the enemy is and who the reinforcements are. Quick, tell us." Yi Guxing and Zhuang Hong's eyes lit up and they hurriedly urged him. Xue Cheng raised his hand and pointed, "The Sword Cultivator's disciples behind them are my Sky Patrol City's reinforcement. The disciples behind them are Fortune Gate's disciples. They are Zhong Haoren's backup." Yi Guxing frowned and asked curiously, "How do you know?" "Because Zhong Haoren, Fei Yunshu, and Zhong Zhon were saved by a Dao cultivator whose strength even I couldn't see through." Xue Cheng said word by word, "That Dao cultivator even said, 'Who dares to hurt my Fortune Gate's disciples?'" Ah! Yi Guxing was shocked. Because the Sky Patrol City's sword array was activated, his divine sense was blocked, so he couldn't see the situation in the south. However, when he heard that there was a Dao cultivator whose strength even Xue Cheng couldn't see through, he couldn't help but exclaim, "There's such a Dao cultivator? Which sect's sect master is he?" Not only that, Xue Cheng didn't stop until he was shocked. He continued, "Although I can't see through his strength, I'm sure he's a demonic beast more powerful than that Dao cultivator." Demonic beast? Yi Guxing was stunned. A 9th grade demonic beast? That's not right. Zhuang Hong was surprised. He raised his hand and pointed at the sword cultivator in the distance and exclaimed, That seems to be Void Heaven Sword School's Qin Jing. Oh, and that's Heavenly Demon Sect's Yang Ji. He seems to be the Earth Spirit Sect's deputy sect master. How could they be reinforcements? Buzz. Just as they were talking, a sharp sword light came from the eastern horizon like a shooting star. Before the sword light arrived, the sword will arrived first. The sword cultivators near Sky Patrol City all heard the sound of swords humming. Senior Spirit Sword. Yi Guxing was very sensitive to the sword intent and couldn't help but exclaim in ecstasy. Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, boom! A black shadow streaked across the sky and blocked the sword light with a terrifying aura. It's him, Xue Cheng exclaimed. This is the Dao cultivator whose strength I don't know. Yi Guxing and Zhuang Hong looked at each other, their eyes full of fear. How could they measure the strength of a Dao cultivator who could block Senior Spirit Sword? What about the divine sword like divine thought just now? Xue Cheng thought of something and asked again. It seems that the divine thought fell to the north of the Sky Patrol City. What divine sword divine thought? Not only Yi Guxing, but Zhuang Hong was also stunned and asked curiously. Xue Cheng's heart thumped and he hurriedly explained, just now, after all the sword cultivators in the Sky Patrol City set out, about half a cup of tea's time, but at this point, Xue Cheng shut up again. How could the two sword cultivators not know when such a terrifying divine thought was released? Unless the person did not want them to know. Cheng suddenly realized that the reason why he detected the divine thought was because Zhong Haoran and the other two were at the south of the Sky Patrol city. The Fortune Gate disciples had retreated to the east and west of the city, so the person controlled the range of the divine thought. Naturally, Yi Guxing and Zhuang Hong could not have detected it. Moreover, the person came at lightning speed. At that time, the entire Sky Patrol city was surrounded by lightning, so the two of them could not see the person's whereabout. The north of the Sky Patrol city, Cheng hurriedly pointed to the north of the Sky Patrol city and shouted, "The divine thought fell there. Yi Shixiang." Yi Guxing shouted and rushed to the north gate of the Sky Patrol city without caring about anything else. Zhuang Hong and Cheng did not dare to delay and followed behind with doubts. When they hurried to the west gate of the Sky Patrol city, they saw the 4 huge crystals and the strange phenomenon imprisoned in the sky. They were dumbfounded again. They did not expect that there would be such a magical formation in this world that they could not detect it even though it was so close. When the 3 sword masters of the Sky Patrol city arrived, Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows. Xiao Hua confidently said to Feng Wu and Huang Tong, who had eaten Immortal Envoy when Xian's tiger-shaped silver tiger, "Fellow Taoists, please protect senior brother Li and the others and retreat. I already know what to do." "Fellow Daoist Xiao." Huang Tong waved her claws and protected Li Zongbao and the others. She flew to the side and reminded, "You have to be careful. This formation is very strange. I can smell the aura of the Demon League from it. Thank you for your reminder." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "I have already detected it. This formation is mysterious and its fluctuations are restrained. It seems to be set up on the Dawn Rain continent, but part of it is hidden in the void. Moreover, this formation does not involve the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It only controls the bloodline. There are even traces of a soul formation. If I did not search your soul and did not understand the power of bloodline, I am afraid I would not dare to act rashly. If you have a plan, you can do it." Feng Wu did not fly far away. Instead, she landed on the other side of the 4 spirits' blood curse and said faintly, "If you need I to do it, just let me know." "Well said." Xiao Hua smiled slightly and raised his hand. The sword gourd that had killed Yu Tong flew out again and landed in the center of the 4 spirits' blood curse. With the incantation, a spirit-slaying light fell from the sky and nailed the center of the bloody light. The moment the 4 spirits' blood curse was nailed, there was a huge rumbling sound again. The 4 seemingly light crystal-like objects suddenly became heavy. An indescribable aura was emitted from the crystals. Countless gorgeous lights and shadows were also emitted from the crystals. The void shook, and the 4 spirits' blood curse slowly fell from the void into the Dawn Rain continent. Waves more violent than the waves spread in all directions. Wherever the waves passed, the earth and mountains shook. Among the cultivators and sword cultivators who were fighting, those with shallow strength could not even stand in midair. One by one, they fell down like gravel. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Chidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliong, Wu Qing, Ah Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonis, Daoist Xiao, Little Zhen, The Blue Sky 1, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Loyal Fan of Divine Cultivation, GUF 854, 7985, and other rewards. Today, I will update for you. Some of the names of the people were not fully counted, so I hope everyone can understand. In addition, if nothing unexpected happens, today will be the last update before the finale of Divine Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it and cherish it. Chapter 5192. Kaka. The sword array closest to the 4 spirit blood curse was naturally the Skyguard city's sword array. Under the 4 spirit blood curse's aura, the sword array immediately cracked and collapsed like a fragile ice cube. Damn it! Yi Guxing and the others cursed. They hurriedly wanted to reinforce the sword formation, but before they could do so, the sword light of the sword formation was suddenly annihilated and the sword formation turned into nothingness. At the same time, above the 4 spirits blood curse, The lightning in the sky reappeared and an indescribable confinement of heaven and earth gradually formed around the lightning. Xiao Hua's figure stood in the middle of this strange phenomenon with a strange expression on his face. He thought to himself, "Oh my, no wonder the four spirits' blood curse used by the immortals in the immortal world to condense the four sacred spiritual bodies has such a strange phenomenon even before it is activated. This kind of formation based on the immortal formation should not exist in the Dawn Rain continent. However, to Fairy Hongxia and the others, this immortal formation is a great calamity, but at the same time, it is also a great opportunity. I originally wanted to let Fairy Hongxia use the Phoenix bloodline when I saw her, but now it seems that without my help, she will only be able to use it after 1,000 years. Putting aside the fact that Xiao Hua had waited for the four-spirit blood curse to completely escape from the void before he took action to break the array, the Dawn Rain continent's aura alone was so vast that not only did it obliterate the Sky Patrol City's sword array, but it also spread to the surroundings of the Sky Patrol City. Wherever the aura passed, there would be explosive sounds and the heaven and earth would shake unceasingly. In particular, under the four spirits' blood curse, the four huge abysses that previously hid the four spirits' celestial bodies were now exuding a faint black gas. The black gas did not rush out of the ground, but entangled on the surface like spiritual snakes. Within the abysses, more faint black gas spread rapidly in the direction of the sword tomb along with the aura and fluctuations of the blood curse. As for the depths of the sword tomb, there was an inexplicable space that was shrouded by the faint black gas. On the surface of the space, countless black gas were like countless tentacles that reached into the earth and covered thousands of miles. The black gas of Sky Patrol City was just a few wisps of this black gas. The huge fluctuations had weakened by the time they reached the space, but the fluctuations still shook the black gas like seaweed swaying in the silent undercurrents of the sea. As the ripples spread into the space, "Hey!" a somewhat obscure voice sounded from deep within the space. Immediately, the black chi in the entire space began to ripple, forming numerous tiny whirlpools all over the place. The black chi fell into the whirlpools and slowly disappeared. Tiny ripples were formed in the space. Following the ripples, a human-shaped figure that was dozens of feet in size was revealed. In the beginning, the outline was just a few lines. The thickness of the lines was uneven, but they were all pitch black, as if they were drawn with ink. As for the vortexes, they were all over the two ends of the lines. After a while, sizzling sounds came from these lines. The pitch-black lines on the lines were like drops of ink dripping into clear water. They began to spread within the outline, and a faint human body appeared as if ink had been splashed onto it. It seemed very slow, but in fact, it was extremely fast. A faint human figure seemed to have crossed the void and appeared in the space. The human figure's body was covered in black chi, and his face could not be seen. As the black chi took shape, it gradually condensed on the surface of the human figure, turning into a pitch-black Confucian robe and a Confucian crown. The little thing from the immortal world has really made a move. The voice sounded very hoarse, but it was obviously the language of a Confucian cultivator from the hidden immortal continent. Following this voice, a Confucian cultivator wearing a Confucian crown and Confucian robe slowly stood up and looked in the direction of Sky Patrol City. It seems that this old man's plans over the years have not been in vain. Unfortunately, this mortal world is really small, and the strength of the Taoist cultivators is also weak. Even if this old man uses the secret method to condense the essence of all the humans, it won't be of much use. I don't know where that drop of essence blood came from. If I can get some more, that would be wonderful. Forget it, no matter what, this is an opportunity for this old man. After saying that, the Confucian cultivator lifted his leg and stepped out of the space. Then, his whole body began to distort, turning into a light shadow that flew towards Sky Patrol City. As for the space behind the Confucian cultivator, it was once again filled with black chi. This Confucian cultivator was naturally the body that was shrouded in black and blood when Xiao Hua was undergoing his lightning tribulation in the sword tomb. That body had not moved for many years and had not changed at all. Why would there be such a big change in less than 1,000 years? It was probably related to some of the blood that dripped down from Xiao Hua's lightning tribulation. Of course, Xiao Hua did not know that a life and death enemy had suddenly appeared in the depths of the earth. At this time, He was waiting for the four spirits' blood curse to completely stabilize. Xiao Hua did not know, but the Void Heaven Sword School's Qin Jing and the Earth Spirit Sect's Vice Sect Master Yang Ji, who were besieging the Dawn Rain Continent's Fortune Gates disciples, were even more clueless. Not only were they clueless, but they were also very annoyed and surprised. Originally, the development of the matter was as they had discussed. They had used the sword formation to hide in the void, avoiding the eyes and ears of Zhong Haoren and the rest of the Dawn Rain Mainland's Fortune Gates disciples. Only after the large group of Fortune Gates disciples had flown past did they emerge from the sword formation. Looking at the Fortune Gates disciples in the distance, it was as if they were watching a fat lamb falling into a trap. When the Dawn Rain Mainland's Fortune Gates disciples launched their attack, they too split into three groups, surrounding Zhong Haoren's group from the east, west, and south sides, and launched their own attacks. In the end, when the Dawn Rain Mainland's Fortune Gates disciples realized that they were surrounded and turned around to attack, it was not out of their expectations. On the contrary, when the Mountain Patrol Sword Gate, Soaring Feather Gate, and Quilted Mountain Sect finally came out in full force, Qin Jing and the others' eyes lit up. They did not expect Yi Guxing to have such courage. However, this was not a big deal. Just as Yi Guxing had said, what they wanted was to control the Heavenly Patrol City and the Fortune Gates forces. They would not attack the Heavenly Patrol City. Therefore, everything developed according to Yi Yaotian, Qin Jing, and the others' plan. Qin Jing and Yang Ji had even ordered the Void Heaven Sword School and Earth Spirit Sect's disciples to surround the Fortune Gates disciples and not kill them. These Fortune Gates disciples were their prey, the foundation for their future expansion. The Fortune Gate disciples' strength was not high, but their aptitude was good. This was the consensus of all sword and Dao cultivators. However, everything changed after the birth of the thunderbolts between heaven and earth. When the lightning appeared behind them, Qin Jing and Yang Ji were stunned at first. After all, the Heaven Patrol City was located in the snow region, where lightning was rare. When they turned their heads to look, they saw lightning covering the land. They immediately realized that something was wrong. However, the Fortune Gate disciples from the Dawn Rain continent had already begun to attack. They could not care less. Other than leaving some disciples to keep watch, the others formed a sword formation and prepared to attack the Fortune Gate disciples from the Dawn Rain continent. They wanted to end the matter with the Fortune Gate disciples as soon as possible so that they could focus on the situation. Their plan was extremely good, but they had underestimated the strength of a true Fortune Gate disciple. After the thunderstorm passed, the Fortune Gate's disciples, led by Xiong Yi and Li Xiong, quickly arrived behind Qin Jing and Yang Ji. Xiao Hua's divine sense and figure that flashed by scared the two of them, as well as the sword cultivators and Earth Spirit Sect's disciples, to the point that they almost pissed their pants. The two did not dare to be negligent. They no longer cared about the Fortune Gate disciples from the Dawn Rain continent and turned to face the Real Fortune Gate disciples. After the battle, the two were scared out of their wits. Although the Real Fortune Gate disciples did not appear to be many in number, each of them was equal to 10. Their formations were especially powerful. In just a short while, hundreds of sword cultivators had already fallen. Damn it! Qin Jing cursed as he blocked an attack from a nascent soul cultivator. Just as he was about to attack a Golden Core disciple who had revealed an opening, the Golden Core disciple's figure flickered and disappeared. Another Golden Core disciple faced Qin Jing. Although Qin Jing sent this Golden Core disciple flying, he did not succeed. He could not help but shout, "Who are you? How dare you surround my Void Heaven Sword School's sword cultivators? I'm a Fortune Gate disciple." The nascent soul cultivator did not hide anything. As he spoke, he waved his hand and the space around Qin Jing was sealed. Qin Jing opened his mouth and a small sword shattered the seal. Qin Jing angrily said, "Were you sent by Zhong Haoren to make fun of us? How can there be a nascent soul master like you in the Fortune Gate?" Who would have thought that the nascent soul cultivator would completely ignore Qin Jing? His figure flickered and he flew several hundred feet away. He waved his hand and saved a Foundation Establishment disciple who was about to be killed by an Earth Spirit Sect disciple. Damn it! Seeing that the nascent soul cultivator had left without any hesitation, Qin Jing cursed angrily. Just as he was about to kill the other Golden Core disciple, a familiar sound of a sword rang out. Qin Jing hurriedly raised his head and looked over. Wasn't it Zhuo Ming of the High Wind Sword sect and Zhuo Lingjian flying over from afar? Great! Qin Jing was overjoyed. However, before he could smile, Yuan Ye had already blocked in front of Zhuo Ming's head with his devil spear. Clang! Without giving Zhuo Ming a chance to speak, Yuan Ye casually pointed his spear at Zhuo Ming's left arm that had transformed into a sword. In Qin Jing's eyes, Zhuo Ming seemed to be trying his best to dodge or even escape. However, no matter how hard Zhuo Ming tried, he couldn't dodge the spear. Peng! After the golden hum, there was a muffled sound. Qin Jing clearly saw that Zhuo Ming's left arm had exploded. Zhuo Ming's figure staggered as he tried to escape. However, he only flew a few hundred feet before Yuan Ye mysteriously blocked in front of his head. Yuan Ye's devil weapon was aimed at Zhuo Ming's forehead, forcing Zhuo Ming to not even dare to move. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, gift it, and thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, Ah Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonic Flower, Zhenren Xiao, Little Zhenjian, The Bluesky One, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Loyal Fan of Divine Cultivation, Guff 854, 7985, etc. In addition, if there are no accidents, today is the last update before the finale of Divine Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it and cherishes it. Chapter 5193. Qin Jing was terrified as he watched. His body swayed and he almost fell from the sky. Who was Zhuo Ming? A spiritual sword. How many spiritual swords could there be in the entire Huan country? How could he be injured by an unknown cultivator's spear and forced to surrender? What's going on? Qin Jing was upset and did not know what to do. However, Qin Jing's troubles did not stop there. Just as he was about to find Yang Ji to discuss, he heard a deep voice in the distance. Junior Xian Jing leads the Kunlun sect disciples to support Senior. I'm late, please forgive me. What? Did I hear wrongly? Xian Jing? Isn't he the sect leader of the Kunlun sect? When did he become a junior? Whose junior is he? Qin Jing was stunned. He stood in the air at a loss and stared blankly at the distant sky above the snowfield. Thousands of Kunlun sect disciples rushed over on flying boats. Wasn't that the sect leader of the Kunlun sect, Xian Jing? A light suddenly appeared in Qin Jing's mind. He cried out, yes, it's him. That spiritual sense just now, Qin Jing seemed to have seen the truth of the matter. But even if he understood, what was the use? Immediately after, behind Xian Jing's Kunlun sect, for terrified voices sounded again. Junior Yang Yu brings the Shanghua sect disciples to support Senior. Please forgive me, Junior Yi Xian of the Xuanyan sect, temporarily acting as the sect leader. Today, I bring the Xuanyan sect disciples to support Senior. Please forgive me, Junior Wu Hongzi of the Chiqiao sect brings the disciples to support Senior in Sky Patrol City. Junior Zhenren Jinghuan is the sect leader of the Huanhua sect. Junior did not manage the sect well and caused trouble for Senior. Today, I bring the disciples to ask for forgiveness. Shanghua sect leader, Zhenren Yang Yu. Xuanyan sect leader, Zhenren Yi Xian. Chiqiao sect leader, Wu Hongzi. Huanhua sect's Zhenren Jinghuan. Qin Jing could not believe his ears. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. His face was ashen. A voice roared in his heart, I must have heard wrongly. How could they be here? This is not a sword Dao battle. Moreover, I seem to have heard from Yi Yaotian that the Vice Alliance Master of the Immortal Alliance, Luo Xingtian, seems to be making some moves in the state of Xi. The four great sects of the state of Xi are all there. However, at this moment, another voice came from the southeast corner in the distance. The various sects of Meng have led their disciples to support Senior. Junior Daoist Yuqing of the Taiqing sect greets Daoist Xiao from afar. Changbai sect's Yun Mengzi led his disciples to pay respects to Daoist Master Xiao. Reverend Li Feng of the Immortal Ascension sect pays his respects to Reverend Xiao. When this voice fell into Qin Jing's ears, it was as if Qin Jing had lost his parents. He stood in midair in a daze. How could he still be in the mood to fight? Seeing Qin Jing's reaction, the Void Heaven Sword School's disciples withdrew their sword qi in fear. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered as they stared at the Fortune Gate's disciples, not daring to resist. Then, in another direction, Zhong Qingxiao's voice also sounded. Zhong Qingxiao of the Heavenly Devil Sect has led the disciples of the Heavenly Devil 13 sects to reinforce Daoist Master Xiao. Oh my God! The Heavenly Devil Sect's disciples turned pale with fright. They cried out inwardly, "Why is Sect Chief Zhong also here?" Chimpage. In the distance, Xiongyi coldly snorted, "You dare to scheme against my Fortune Gate's disciples. In this old man's opinion, you should all be killed. However, my sect master is the most benevolent. He has already said that regardless of whether it is a sword Dao cultivator or a Dao cultivator, they are all human cultivators. As long as you surrender and join my Fortune Gate, you will be spared from death. Why don't you wait here and make your choice? As for the Heavenly Devil Sect's disciples, wait here. We are willing to join the Fortune Gate." Before Xiongyi could finish, a voice shouted. Then, Qin Jing saw the surrounding disciples surrender one after another. A sword Dao battle? The Sky Patrol City's disciples naturally heard that the Shi country and Meng country's sect masters had led their disciples here. They were shocked and did not dare to be negligent. They abandoned the Fortune Gate's disciples and hurriedly retreated to the Sky Patrol City. The Dawn Rain Continent's Fortune Gate's disciples were the most confused. They had just escaped death, and each of them was pleasantly surprised. Looking at the fleeing Sky Patrol City's sword cultivators, the Void Heaven Sword School's disciples who had surrendered, and the unfamiliar Fortune Gate's disciples, they did not know what to do. Hee. Xiong Zhili looked at the Fortune Gate's disciples and laughed. "Sect Master Zhong, it's time for you to come out." Sect Master Xiong and Sect Master Li won't have much time to pacify these disciples. "Yes, Junior will listen to Senior's instructions," Zhong Haoran, Zhong Zhon, and Fei Yunshu replied. Then, Xiong Zhili led Zhong Haoran to the east side of the Sky Patrol City, Wu Qing led Zhong Zhon to the south side, and Kui Yingying led Fei Yunshu to the west side. The myriad Thunder Valley's three heroes had just started to move when they heard a thunderous rumble in the sky above the north side of the Sky Patrol City. A 1,000-meter-tall thunder avatar appeared in the bright sun. Xiao Hua looked around like a thunder god and said in a loud voice, "Many thanks for coming to help. The battle between my Fortune Gate and the Sky Patrol City has come to an end. You don't need to get involved. After this Xiao has dealt with the matters here, there are some important matters to discuss with you. Please wait here for a moment." Xiao Hua did not release his pressure, nor did he show off his divine ability, but this simple thunder avatar confirmed all the rumors on the Dawn Rain continent. The various sect masters were shocked and hurriedly issued the sect master's order. After ordering their disciples to stop, they bowed in unison and said, "Yes, Junior, understand." After instructing the heads of the various sects, Xiao Hua withdrew his Thunder Dharma body and once again entered the Four Spirits blood curse. He looked at the blood formation that had already stabilized, took a deep breath, and formed a seal with his hands. A bright silver light appeared on his arms, and the celestial art that was similar to immortal emissary Wen's had been formed. Catcher. Before Xiao Hua's first seal was formed, there were signs of thunder tribulation in the sky. The nearby cultivators' hearts trembled as if they saw the end of the world. Fellow Daoist. Feng Wu could not help but remind, "This array is very powerful, don't try to show off." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at Fairy Hong Xia's sleeping eyebrows in the Ice Phoenix crystal. He did not answer, but waved his hands together. Shua. Two phantoms appeared and the nearby void collapsed rapidly. Layers of bright silver light rushed towards the Ice Phoenix crystal like swimming fish. At this moment, under the Four Spirits blood curse, a vague black shadow quietly emerged from an abyss. When he saw the dazzling silver light, he hurriedly retreated. When the black shadow condensed into the figure of a Confucian cultivator in the abyss, the Confucian cultivator secretly frowned again. My goodness, why did an immortal from the immortal realm suddenly appear on the Dawn Rain continent? My strength has not recovered yet, how can I be his opponent? Let's wait and see. Then, the Confucian cultivator's body exploded again, turning into thousands of black gas that surged to the ground. Some fell under the four spirits' blood curse, some seeped into other places, but most of them happily pounced on the place where the previous battle took place, happily absorbing the blood chi and devouring the wandering soul. Xiao Hua was fully focused on saving Fairy Hongxia and did not notice the abnormality of the black gas. When he saw the bright silver light of the immortal seal touching the ice phoenix crystal, Xiao Hua raised his hand and was about to point at the sword gourd. But when he saw that his right arm had turned bright silver, he hurriedly shouted, "Fellow Daoist Feng Wu, quickly lend me a hand." "No problem." Feng Wu whispered, opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of demonic qi into the sword gourd. The spirit-slaying vital light in the sword gourd shone brightly. Wung wung. In the trembling sound, the spirit-slaying vital light nailed the void and a bloody light reversed back to the ice phoenix crystal. The moment the bloody light touched the crystal, the immortal seal also fell into the ice phoenix dharma body. Shua. With a soft sound, the crystal melted rapidly and fell into the ice phoenix dharma body and Fairy Hongxia's bloodline like snow water. TSK TSK. The Confucian cultivator's primordial spirit, hidden in the dark, could not help but make a sound, as if he was extremely envious. This is the essence of thousands of bloodlines that have been purified by the four spirits' blood curse. This little girl seems to have the bloodline of the Phoenix clan and was originally an innate spirit body. After obtaining this bloodline, her blood chi and blood far surpass that of ordinary people. If she had a secret technique to condense essence chi, refining a few primordial spirit doppelgangers would be child's play. What a pity, Ayo. Suddenly, the Confucian cultivator's primordial spirit was even more shocked. Who is this immortal? He dares to use a forbidden technique. No, he is not an immortal, but a Daoist cultivator who is about to undergo a tribulation. Hihi, my luck has come. The only thing that could shock the Confucian cultivator's primordial spirit was naturally Xiao Hua's soul technique. Seeing the essence of the bloodline fall into the Ice Phoenix Dharma body and Fairy Hongxia's body, the Ice Phoenix Dharma body turned blood red and became more transparent. Fairy Hongxia was also shrouded in a bloody mist. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, then opened his mouth. Green seal text poured out, and with the chanting of ghosts and gods, thousands of wisps of dark green light fell into the Ice Phoenix Dharma body and Fairy Hongxia's bloodline. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the bloody mist around Fairy Hongxia's body entered her body. The Ice Phoenix Dharma body also gradually shrank, and finally entered Fairy Hongxia's bloodline. However, after waiting for a while, Fairy Hongxia's eyes were still tightly shut, and she did not wake up. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, was very confident. He slowly flew in front of Fairy Hongxia and lovingly looked at her snowy face, dark eyebrows, and that unchanging red mole at the corner of her mouth. Then, he slowly raised his hand and slowly touched the space between her eyebrows. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, Ah Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonis, Daoist Xiao, Little Zhenjian, The Blue Sky One, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Loyal Fan of Divine Cultivation, Guff 854, 7985, and so on. Also, if there are no accidents, today is the last update before the finale of Divine Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it and cherishes it. Chapter 5194. Oh. Where Xiao Hua's finger landed, a strand of hair-like crystal light landed on Fairy Hongxia's jade-like forehead. Fairy Hongxia groaned and opened her eyes. Seeing Xiao Hua's unforgettable appearance reflected in her starry eyes, a sweet smile appeared on her enchanting lips. Fairy Hongxia was not surprised at all. She whispered, "Xiao Hua, you're back?" With that, Fairy Hongxia raised her arms and hugged Xiao Hua. She pressed her face against Xiao Hua's chest and closed her eyes in bliss. Xiao Hua's eyes were moist. He already understood that Fairy Hongxia did not have any change of heart. In the past 1,000 years, she had dreamt of his return more than once. It was as if she imagined hugging him like this every time. So when she suddenly saw him, she thought that it was still a dream. Therefore, She did not have any doubts and hugged him like before. Xiao Hua's heart melted. Gentleness was a hero's grave. Facing such gentleness, how could Xiao Hua still have any heroic spirit? He could not help but wrap his arms around Fairy Hongxia, wanting to hug her too. However, his heart skipped a beat. He immediately waved his finger and a boundary appeared to protect his left side. As expected by Xiao Hua, Fairy Hongxia closed her eyes, raised her neck, and kissed his lips again. Xiao Hua lowered his head and gently touched the trembling and moist area. He touched the fresh and jade-like lilac. Ah! It was just a touch, but the familiar scent, the familiar feeling, the familiar passion, and the familiar action immediately woke Fairy Hongxia up. She let out a soft cry and opened her eyes. Her phoenix eyes narrowed as she shouted, "Who is it?" Before she could finish her words, Xiao Hua covered her mouth again. Xiao Hua's voice was a little muffled. "Of course it's your husband." You. Fairy Hongxia responded a few times. Her whole body was weak. 2 lines of tears flowed from the corner of her eyes. Lilac also enthusiastically welcomed it. However, in just a moment, Fairy Hongxia suddenly opened her mouth and fiercely bit Xiao Hua's lip. Ouch! Xiao Hua might not be in pain, but he still pretended to cry out, "Why did you bite me? Damn it!" Fairy Hongxia fiercely pinched Xiao Hua's armpit again and asked, "For the past 700 years, where have you been hiding? Why can't I find you?" Xiao Hua was a little embarrassed. Just as he was about to speak, Fairy Hongxia suddenly burst into tears again. Woo-woo. She threw herself into Xiao Hua's arms and cried, "Xiao Hua, where the hell did you go? Do you know how much I missed you? Don't cry, don't cry." Xiao Hua hugged Fairy Hongxia and stroked her long hair. Smelling the familiar scent, he said, "Isn't your husband back now? In the future, we will never separate again." Woo-woo. Fairy Hongxia did not reply, she only cried in Xiao Hua's embrace. However, in just a moment, Fairy Hongxia suddenly came to her senses and hurriedly escaped from Xiao Hua's embrace. She raised her head and looked around. Unfortunately, the space had already been sealed by Xiao Hua. Other than the two of them, Fairy Hongxia could not see anyone else. Where did this come from? Fairy Hongxia was baffled. This concubine remembers that we seem to have fallen into Yi Shixiang's ambush. Yes, that's right. Xiao Hua nodded. Previously, Yi Shixiang used you as bait to lure the Fortune Gate's disciples to Sky Patrol City. Furthermore, Yu Tong wanted to use your bloodline as the foundation to forge the 4 sacred spirit body. Then, Fairy Hongxia was even more puzzled and asked, "What about them? What about Xiao Mao? What about my CAI family's disciples? Yu Tong and Yi Shixiang have already been killed by me," Xiao Hua said indifferently. "The CAI family's disciples are also dead. Xiao Mao also fell into the 4 spirits blood curse like you. At this time, he also has an opportunity. However, he is more troublesome. I will save you first, then save him." You. Fairy Hongxia looked at her husband in disbelief and asked curiously, "You can actually kill Yi Shixiang and Yu Tong?" "Yes." Xiao Hua smiled. "The current me is not the same as before. You will understand in a while." Fairy Hongxia smiled and pointed at Xiao Hua's forehead. "Then this concubine will see what divine ability husband has to save Xiao Mao. Divine ability or not, I don't know." Xiao Hua said seriously, "This husband only knows that without my wife's kiss, this husband will not be able to test out any divine ability." Chimpage. Fairy Hongxia raised her neck and slanted her eyes at Xiao Hua. Then, she leaned over and lightly kissed Xiao Hua's lips. "It won't be too late to reward you after you save Xiao Mao. Yes, my wife, I will definitely do my best." Xiao Hua smiled happily. With a wave of his hand, he removed the barrier. Fairy Hongxia felt a flash in front of her and 3 huge crystals appeared. Moreover, Feng Wu and Huang Tong were beside them and even Yi Yin and the rest were in the distance. She could not help but be shocked. "Ah!" she exclaimed softly and her face turned red. However, without waiting for her to lower her head, Xiao Hua held her soft hand and pointed at where Huang Tong was and said, "Take a look, who is that person?" "Who?" Fairy Hongxia was a little embarrassed and did not dare to look. In her hurry, she did not see Li Zongbao and Cai Zhuoxia. At this moment, when she heard Xiao Hua's words, she rebuked, "Since you are a cultivator that I know, why did you set up that barrier?" "Hihi, this person can't wait for us to stay in there longer," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Take a look and you will know." "Who is it?" Fairy Hongxia raised her head and looked in that direction. She even said, "Why are you being so secretive?" However, when Fairy Hongxia saw Cai Zhuoxia, she was stunned. She was even more shocked than when she saw Xiao Hua. She hurriedly rubbed her eyes and opened them again. Indeed, the living Cai Zhuoxia flew over with tears streaming down her face. "Go quickly." Xiao Hua let go and said, "That is really Cai Zhuoxia." But Fairy Hongxia did not dare to believe that Cai Zhuoxia had come back to life. However, her innate kinship pushed her and she flew over without a care for anything else. "Hongxia." The familiar voice and the face that was engraved in her memory caused Fairy Hongxia to cry again. "Sister." The two sisters hugged each other and cried bitterly. "Zhuoxia, junior sister." Li Zongbao's voice sounded in their ears. "Junior brother Xiao still has to save the others. Let's go to the side first." Cai Zhuoxia was already mentally prepared. At this moment, she choked with sobs as she pulled Fairy Hongxia's hand and followed Li Zongbao to Huang Tong's side. Fairy Hongxia naturally did not care about Xiao Hua saving people. Instead, she held Cai Zhuoxia's warm hand and asked, "Sister, I remember you. Your body was already cold at that time. How could you still be alive? Could it be?" Fairy Hongxia looked at Li Zongbao with some envy and said, "Senior brother Li really found an elixir for you. How can there be any elixir in this world?" Cai Zhuoxia stopped crying and replied, "If not for your husband, even if Zongbao searched for another 1,000 or 10,000 years, I would not be able to live." "Ah, him? Xiao Hua?" Fairy Hongxia was stunned and asked curiously, "How could he have such a divine ability?" "He is not the original Xiao Hua," Cai Zhuoxia said meaningfully. "He is now Daoist Xiao. The one and only Daoist Xiao in the world. Sister and Zongbao may not understand his divine ability, but you have to remember, Sister was really revived by him. That's not possible, right?" Fairy Hongxia could not believe it and whispered to Cai Zhuoxia, "If you don't believe me, look." Cai Zhuoxia looked into the distance and said, "This kind of divine ability, who in the entire Dawn Rain continent can have it?" At this moment, Xiao Hua was sending Huang Mengxiang's vermilion bird celestial body into his body. Then, he raised his hand and a crystal light flashed from his finger and fell between Huang Mengxiang's eyebrows. Xiao Hua seemed to feel something and turned to look at Fairy Hongxia with a smile on his face. He nodded at Fairy Hongxia, telling her not to worry. Unexpectedly, just as Xiao Hua turned his face, Huang Mengxiang woke up. He was as enthusiastic and wild as he was at Tianmen Mountain. When Huang Mengxiang saw Xiao Hua, he said in ecstasy, "So it's big brother Xiao. Thank you so much, you saved me again." As she spoke, Huang Mengxiang stretched out her hand and hugged Xiao Hua's neck with her jade arms. Her red lips lightly raised as she kissed Xiao Hua's face. Of course, when Huang Mengxiang kissed his cheek, Xiao Hua had already noticed that the golden light on his face had blocked Huang Mengxiang's red lips. Unfortunately, Fairy Hongxia did not release her divine sense, so how could she tell? And Huang Mengxiang's words confirmed Fairy Hongxia's suspicions. How could she not know that the person in Huang Mengxiang's heart was Xiao Hua? And Xiao Hua and this Huang Mengxiang had something that she did not know about, happened. "Of course I believe you." Fairy Hongxia's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. She said faintly, "I saw it all." Seeing Fairy Hongxia's expression, Xiao Hua knew that things weren't going well. Golden light surged around his body as he slowly pushed Huang Mengxiang away. He said in a low voice, "Ayo, my little grandaunt, can't you stop causing trouble?" Huang Mengxiang pouted and looked at Fairy Hongxia in the distance. "Brother Xiao, what trouble did I cause? I like you. Is there anything wrong with that? Although Fairy Hongxia is your Dao companion, you did not hold a dual cultivation ceremony. I still have the possibility of becoming your Dao companion. Besides, even if you two become Dao companions, Can't you have another Tao companion? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chijian, vote for it, save it, tip it. Thank you for all forms of support. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliang, Wu Qing, R Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonis, Daoist Xiao, Little Zhenjian, The Blue Sky One, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Loyal Fan of Divine Cultivation, Guff 854, 7985, etc. Also, if there are no accidents, today is the last update before the finale of Divine Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it and cherishes it. Chapter 5195. While speaking, Huang Mengxiang even winked at Xiao Hua with a "you know what I mean" look. Xiao Hua was extremely speechless. "Ioro, that's right." Huang Mengxiang seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "Previously, the young master of the Yi family, Yi Shixiong, even proposed to Fairy Hongxia, and Fairy Hongxia almost agreed. If it was me, I would definitely not agree. Yi Shixiang and Yu Tong have already been killed by me," Xiao Hua said faintly. "There's no need to mention this again." "Ah!" Huang Mengxiang was shocked and hurriedly said, "You actually killed them all? My goodness, Brother Xiao, you're actually so powerful now. I'm so happy. Brother Xiao, you're my great hero. I'll only marry you in this life." Xiao Hua was really helpless when he heard this. He was extremely regretful now. He wanted to set up a restriction to block Huang Mengxiang's words and everything that happened. However, he also understood that doing this now was just drawing legs on a snake. If Fairy Hongxia knew about this, it would only add to her troubles. Xiao Hua looked at Fairy Hongxia in the distance and a bitter smile appeared on his face, hoping that Fairy Hongxia could see it. Unfortunately, Fairy Hongxia's mouth twitched and turned to whisper to Cai Zhuoxia as if she couldn't see him. She was obviously angry. "Huang Mengxiang." Xiao Hua turned to Huang Mengxiang and said, "I'll tell you again. Brother Xiao, what do you want to say? Just say it, I'm listening." Huang Mengxiang supported his cheeks with both hands and looked at Xiao Hua with watery eyes filled with worship and infatuation. He muttered as if he was sleepwalking. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and simply waved his hand. "Forget it, I won't say anything. I think you already know what I want to say." Huang Mengxiang nodded his head like a chick pecking rice and replied, "Don't worry, Brother Xiao, I'll listen to you. I won't say anything else and will just watch you quietly from the side. Go go." Xiao Hua waved his hand and sent Huang Mengxiang to Feng Wu's side. "Just don't cause trouble for I." "Of course, how can I cause trouble for Brother Xiao?" Huang Mengxiang was more well-behaved than any other deer. It stood obediently in the air, lowered its voice as if to demonstrate its power, and replied gently. As it spoke, it did not forget to glance at Fairy Hongxia a few times. At this moment, Xiao Hua could no longer care about Huang Mengxiang and Fairy Hongxia because the 4 crystals of the 4-spirit blood curse were the 4 places where yin and yang were balanced. According to the arrangement of the jade system, the 4 crystals would give birth to the 4 saint spirit body. Right now, Xiao Hua's reversal of the 4 saint spiritual bodies was equivalent to reversing the universe. The difficulty was not ordinary. Previously, Xiao Hua had used the Spirit Extermination Vital Light to freeze the 4 spirits blood curse. More importantly, he had temporarily maintained the yin-yang formation formed by the 4 crystals, ensuring that Fairy Hongxia, Huang Mengxiang, and Xiao Maro would not be harmed. Now that Xiao Hua had rescued Fairy Hongxia, one of the 4 crystals was gone. Although Fairy Hongxia and Huang Mengxiang's side was slightly tilted, they were still able to maintain their balance. When Huang Mengxiang was rescued, half of the 4 spirits blood curse was gone. At the same time, the blood curse was collapsing rapidly in midair, and at the same time, an indescribable wave of energy was crazily attacking the other 2 crystal. As for the Spirit Extermination Vital Light that had pinned down the 4 spirits blood curse, it was also trembling violently. Pieces of shattered light mixed with the black and white light screen also scattered in all directions. Waves of roar, like the roar of a bull, came from the void. Wherever the light screen passed, the 2 crystals would lose their brilliance as if their colors had faded. The Yun Xiao Ying and Yu Shi Song that were originally sealed in the crystals also gradually disappeared. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed under his breath, and hurriedly raised his hands. His arms, which were already shining with a silver light, instantly expanded and flew across the sky to land on the two crystals. Rumble. The moment the silver light appeared, countless lightning bolts came from the sky, from the void, and fell towards Xiao Hua. At the same time, an ascending force surged out from Xiao Hua's left side like a spring. Not only that, an unparalleled aura that was similar to an oppressive pressure was emitted from Xiao Hua's body, rushing in all directions like a tidal wave. Whether it was Fairy Hongxia, Huang Mengxiang, or the rest, they were unable to stand firm in the face of this aura. Their bodies trembled, and fear appeared in their eyes. Go! Huang Tong and Feng Wu looked at each other, and Xiao Hua's roar came from the bottom of their hearts. The two clones did not dare to delay, and with a wave of their sharp claws, they brought everyone to fly into the distance. Although they flew quickly, they were still not as fast as the immortal spiritual aura. Fairy Hongxia and the rest were like mortals drowning in a river, surrounded by terror. If Fairy Hongxia and the rest were like this, how could the Fortune Gate disciples, Sky Patrol City's sword cultivators, and the disciples of the cultivation world's three great paths be any better? One by one, they could not even summon their true chi and true essence, and fell onto the snowy plains, looking at the godlike Xiao Hua in horror. Pu. Xiao Hua controlled the two crystals, opened his mouth, and sent a mouthful of true chi into the sword gourd. Woo woo. The sword gourd let out a trembling sound, and the spirit execution vital light shone brightly. Ka. Waves of cracking sounds came from the void, as if the place where the spirit execution vital light was targeting was unable to support the collapsing four spirits blood curse. Looking at the other side of the collapsing four spirits blood curse, cracks as thick as a child's arm appeared along with the lightning bolts, right at this moment. Seeing the yin side of the four spirits blood curse being annihilated, Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and secretly shouted in his heart. Borrowing the ascending force of the nearby void, he waved his right hand. Rumble. A huge rumbling sound was produced from the silver tiger crystal. Under Xiao Hua's strength, the huge crystal trembled and moved. With Xiao Hua's current divine ability, not to mention a crystal, even if it was a mountain, if Xiao Hua wanted to move it, he could do it with a wave of his arm. However, this four spirits blood curse was created by Yu Tong with reference to the immortal world's immortal array, and the blood curse claimed to be one. If Xiao Hua wanted to reverse the blood curse to move this crystal, it would be even more difficult than moving a mountain. Moreover, Xiao Hua also had to consider the life and death of Xiao Maro and Hanba inside the crystal, so he was even more cautious. Seeing that the crystal had only moved a few zhong, its speed began to slow down again. The two crystals produced a suction force, and the other side of the collapsing four spirits blood curse gave birth to a strong pushing force, preventing the crystal from moving. Damn it! Xiao Hua understood that this was the natural rejection of yin and yang. If he wanted to reverse yin and yang, he had to take out a divine ability that surpassed the laws of this realm. He raised his head to look at the tribulation clouds, then looked at the nearby thunderbolts and immortal spiritual energy, and couldn't help but curse. If I forcefully activate my immortal spiritual energy, I might be able to send this crystal to the other side of the four spirits blood curse, but the immortal spiritual energy in my body will definitely be activated to an extreme degree, and my ascension will be unavoidable. However, if I don't move the crystal, the entire four spirits blood curse will be destroyed in a moment, and these two crystals will also be destroyed. Not to mention Xiao Maro and Hanba surviving, even their souls won't be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Thinking up to here, Xiao Hua hesitated. After all, there were only Xiao Maro and Hanba inside the crystal, and there were billions of living beings in the three continents. This simple comparison was easy for him to make a judgment. Let's activate the lightning escape first. Xiao Hua didn't dare to use the immortal technique again, and while retracting his immortal spiritual energy, he pondered. If the lightning escape doesn't work, then I'll try to put the four spirits blood curse into the space. Of course, when Xiao Hua released his divine sense earlier, he already knew that the four spirits blood curse was an independent entity, and he couldn't activate it even if he used the immortal technique. Now, even if he released his divine sense and mind, it wouldn't be easy to put this crystal into the space. Rumble. Xiao Hua's body moved at will, the lightning around his body flourished, and he activated the lightning escape with all his might. He abandoned the flame dragon crystal and placed both his arms on the silver tiger crystal, pushing the crystal towards the other side of the four spirits' blood curse. Amidst the lightning, that seemingly thin body actually became blurry, and the crystal that had already started to slow down accelerated once again. In the end, a multicolored ball of light gradually appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua was clear in his heart. His lightning escape had activated the light escape, and the crystal in front of him might not be able to stop his light escape. In other words, he might not be able to push the crystal anymore, and he would pass through the crystal and enter the other side of the crystal. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent, and hastily retracted his magic power, carefully maintaining the edge of the light escape. After a long time seemed to have already become imperceptible at the edge of the light escape. Xiao Hua's arms sank, and the crystal encountered an indestructible barrier, unable to move forward even half an inch. Moreover, an even stronger suction force behind Xiao Hua was like a giant hand of heaven and earth that grasped the crystal, trying its best to snatch the crystal away from Xiao Hua's hands. Xiao Hua understood that this was the most crucial moment. He had already pushed the crystal to the point where yin and yang intersected. The crystal only needed to cross this barrier, and the broken four spirits' blood curse would definitely be balanced again. Not only would Xiao Maro and Hamba's lives be unharmed, they would even be able to absorb the bloodline power within the crystal, which would be extremely beneficial to their cultivation. Rumble. Xiao Hua once again activated his magic power, and where the lightning passed, Xiao Hua's figure disappeared by more than half. Xiao Hua hurriedly emptied his hands, and both his arms entered the crystal. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed, and hastily retracted his magic power. That disappeared figure reappeared, and both his arms also withdrew from the crystal. What should I do? Xiao Hua was somewhat in a predicament, and he inwardly pondered, previously, if it wasn't for my apprehension that Feng Wu and Huang Tong would trigger the four spirits' blood curse, I should have let them make a move together with me. Thunder Immortal is the most suitable, but he is also sacrificial, refining the 5 elements wishful heaven staff in the space, so there is simply no way for him to get out. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly had a feeling of coming back from the jaws of death, as if he had realized something. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Chijian to subscribe to support, cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Thanks to Ben Ben, Xiao Hua, Dongfang Yushan, Hong Hua, Chen Fangliong, Wu Qing, Ah Lun, Pishan, Lishao 777, Little Duan Demonis, Daoist Xiao, Little Zhenjian, The Blue Sky One, Cai Gui Hun, Favorite Tanhua, Loyal Fan of Divine Cultivation, GUF 854, 7985, and so on. Today, I will update for you, but some of the names of the people were not completely counted, so I hope everyone can understand. In addition, if there are no accidents, today is the last update before the end of Divine Cultivation. I hope everyone likes it, and cherish it.